Hello and welcome back to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're going to be diving into something that I know a lot of you out there have been wanting to get better at, and that is talking about your future career plans in English. Whether you're getting ready for a job interview or networking or even just chatting with colleagues or other people in a professional setting, it's super important to be able to talk about your future plans in English.
You're absolutely right. It's so important to be able to articulate those goals clearly and with confidence.
Right.
It really can make you stand out from the crowd. It shows that you're ambitious, you're serious about your future, and also just when you're comfortable talking about where you want to go, that passion really shines through.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention the passion, because I was just thinking that, it's not just about listing, facts and figures. It's about, really showing that you're enthusiastic and you're excited about, what you're talking about. But, it can be intimidating, just even knowing where to begin.
Yeah, for sure. I think a great place to start is by building up your vocabulary.
Right.
Having those strong words that you need to really express yourself clearly.
Okay, vocabulary.
Yeah.
But vocabulary can be a little bit of a beast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be.
I mean, when was the last time you used the word aspiration, in casual conversation?
Right.
It's a bit much.
Well, aspiration just means like a strong desire to achieve something, that's significant.
Okay.
So for example, like my aspiration is to lead a team developing sustainable technology, So you're using that word, you're showing that you're, looking towards the future and that you have these big goals.
Okay. That doesn't sound as intimidating when you put it like that.
Right.
What about pursue? I feel like that's another one that comes up all the time.
Yeah, pursue basically means to actively work towards a goal. So, So you could say something like, after gaining some experience, I plan to pursue a management role. It shows that you're taking steps towards, what you want to achieve.
Okay, cool. So just having those definitions, I think, makes things so much clearer.
Yeah, definitely.
But, it's not all about, individual words, right? I was reading that grammar can actually play a pretty big role, too.
Absolutely.
Like using different future tenses can really, make you sound more natural.
You're absolutely right. Using a variety of those tenses, it's going to make your English flow much better. And it really shows that you have a good grasp of the nuances of the language.
Okay, cool. So tell me more about those tenses.
Well, you've got your simple future, I will launch my own startup.
Okay.
That shows certainty. Then there's going to, I'm going to take a coding course, so that's more intention. And then you've got the present continuous for, fixed plans, like I'm starting an internship next month.
Okay.
Each one, has a slightly different shade of meaning. That's really interesting. So, yeah, choosing the right tense, I guess, can really reflect, how concrete your plans are or how, exactly how sure you are about things. Now, speaking of plans, there's that classic interview question that I think makes everybody a little bit nervous.
Oh, yeah.
What are your future career plans?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. Any advice on how to tackle that one?
Yeah, for sure. There's actually a pretty simple framework that can help you structure a good answer, whether it's, in an interview or just in a casual conversation.
Okay. Tell me more. I'm all ears.
So first, you want to clearly state your goal. So my goal is to become a project manager specializing in renewable energy.
Okay. So you start with the ambition.
Exactly.
And then what?
Then you're going to explain why you've chosen that specific path. So this is where you connect your goal to your values and interests.
Okay.
So you could say something like, I'm passionate about sustainability and I want to make a real difference in combating climate change, or
I thrive in leadership roles and I really enjoy bringing teams together to achieve ambitious goals. So you're letting your personality shine through a little bit.
Right. So it's about showing that it's not just a random job title that you picked.
Right.
It's something that you're actually genuinely interested in.
Exactly.
Then what do you do?
Then you're going to outline the steps you'll take to reach your goal. So that shows that you're not just dreaming, you're actually taking action.
Okay.
So you could say, I'm currently improving my project management skills through online courses and by volunteering for leadership roles.
Right. So you're showing them you're proactive, you're serious about it.
Exactly.
And then what's the final step?
And then finally, this is where it gets exciting. You want to wrap up by painting a picture of your long-term vision.
Okay.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years?
The long-term vision.
Yeah.
I think that can be a really tough one.
Yeah.
What if you're still figuring things out, or, what if your goals change?
Right.
Is it okay to not have like everything perfectly mapped out?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, flexibility is key. Your vision's going to evolve as you gain experience and learn new things. So it's more about having a general direction,
Okay.
even if the specifics change along the way.
That's good to hear. I mean, I know I've definitely changed directions a few times in my own career.
Right.
So it's more about the compass than the roadmap, I guess.
Exactly. And to help you kind of visualize this framework in action, we've got some specific example answers for different situations.
Oh, examples. I love examples.
Yeah.
What kind of situations do we have?
Well, we've got like a typical job interview scenario.
Okay.
We've got a more casual chat with a friend, after university, and then a personal reflection exercise just to help you kind of, solidify your thoughts.
Okay, cool. So we've got different contexts for our listeners.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into that job interview scenario first.
Okay, great.
Okay, so let's say we're in that job interview and, we're already a little bit nervous, and then the interviewer asks you, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right. That can be a really daunting question.
Yeah.
But if you remember our framework, you can just take a deep breath and say something like this. In 5 years, I'm aiming to be a marketing manager.
Okay.
Right now, I'm building my experience as a marketing assistant and taking some professional development courses to really sharpen my skills.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's clear, it's concise.
Right.
And it shows that you're ambitious, but also that you're, taking those steps to improve yourself.
Exactly. And it shows, commitment to continuous learning, which a lot of employers really like to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so that's the job interview. You know what? If we're in a more casual setting, like maybe you're chatting with a friend after you just graduated from university,
Yeah.
and they ask you, so what are you planning to do now that you're done with school?
Right.
What do you say?
Well, instead of just saying, I don't know, which we've probably all been there,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
you could say, I'm really passionate about journalism.
Okay.
So I'm planning to apply for internships at some local news agencies. I've always loved writing and storytelling, and I think this could be a great way to combine my interests with a meaningful career.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's still structured. It's still, goal-oriented.
Yeah.
But the language feels so much more,
Yeah.
relaxed and natural.
Yeah, exactly. It's more conversational.
Yeah.
You're showing your personality and your enthusiasm.
Right. And, it's also showing that you're taking action, even if you don't have everything,
Yeah.
100% figured out.
Totally.
Now, what about, those times when you're not really in a conversation with anybody, but you're just, kind of reflecting on your own goals?
Right.
I find that sometimes it helps to write things down,
Yeah.
just to get your thoughts clear in your head. Do you have an example for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine you're journaling or just jotting down some ideas for your future. You could write something like, I've always dreamt of becoming a graphic designer.
Right.
I've been fascinated by art and visual communication since I was a kid, and I love using design software to bring my ideas to life. Right now, I'm studying digital design at university and building a portfolio to showcase my work.
Okay.
After I graduate, I plan to gain some experience working at a design studio, and eventually, I'd love to start my own freelance business and help small companies with their branding.
Wow, that's a great example.
Yeah.
It covers the why, the how, and, that long-term vision all in one go.
Right. And just the act of writing it down can really help you solidify those goals.
Yeah, makes them feel more real.
Right.
I like that. Okay, so, we've talked about different ways to express our goals.
Right.
But I remember you mentioned that there are also some practice exercises that we can use to, really solidify all this. What are some of the...
Yeah. One of my favorites is just a simple fill in the blanks exercise.
Okay.
So you could write something like, I want to become a blank because I enjoy blank. And it forces you to really think about what you want and why.
Yeah, it's like a mini, self-discovery session.
Exactly.
I like it. But, we've talked about vocabulary, we've talked about grammar, we've talked about, structuring our answers.
Right.
But there's another really important ingredient that I think we can't forget about.
What's that?
Confidence.
Oh, confidence is huge.
Yeah. You can have, the perfect answers.
Right.
But if you don't sound confident when you're saying them, it's not going to have the same impact.
Absolutely. Any tips for boosting confidence?
Yeah. Do you have any advice?
Well, one of the best things you can do is just practice speaking about your goals out loud.
Okay.
I know it can feel a little awkward at first, but it really makes a difference.
It's like rehearsing for a play.
Yeah.
The more you practice your lines, the more natural you're going to sound when it's showtime.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment with different phrasings,
Okay.
Find what feels most authentic to you. And another really great way to build confidence is by just immersing yourself in real-life English conversations.
So like listening to podcasts, for example.
Yes, podcasts like this one, of course.
Of course.
But also watching interviews with professionals in your field or joining English-speaking communities online. All of these are great ways to pick up on those nuances of language, the intonation, the expression, all those things that can really elevate your communication skills.
Right. So it's about surrounding yourself with the language and kind of absorbing it organically.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of positive self-talk.
Oh, yeah, this is huge.
Instead of focusing on your fears and doubts, you want to embrace those affirmations.
Okay.
Like, I will achieve this. I'm capable of doing this. I'm excited about the possibilities.
Yeah. It's like they say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Right. Your mindset really shapes your reality.
Yeah. So, it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it and how you feel about it.
Exactly. And remember, talking about your future career plans, it's not a one-time event.
Right.
It's an ongoing process of reflection, exploration, and refinement.
So it's okay if our goals change along the way.
Of course, yeah.
As we learn and grow.
Absolutely. Your priorities might shift. You might discover new passions, and that's totally normal. The key is to stay engaged in this dialogue with yourself and with others.
So by, constantly revisiting our goals and, refining them, we're actually getting closer to achieving them.
Right. The more you articulate your aspirations, the clearer they become and the more empowered you feel to pursue them. And you never know, the insights you gain from these conversations might even lead to unexpected opportunities.
Oh, that's a good point. Things that you hadn't even considered before.
Exactly. It's a reminder that this journey is all about, continuous learning and growth. Yeah.
And embracing the unknown.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From vocabulary and grammar to structuring our answers to building confidence. But before we wrap up, I want to emphasize one final point. This is just the beginning.
Yes, we've only scratched the surface today.
Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. As we're wrapping up our deep dive on talking about future career plans in English, I'm feeling pretty energized by all the tips that we've discussed today.
Me too. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yeah, but before we sign off, I want to kind of summarize the key takeaways, for our listeners in Adair Sarah. What would you say is the most important thing for them to remember?
I think the most important thing is that talking about your future career plans in English, it's a skill. It's not some kind of innate talent,
Right.
It's something that you can develop and improve through practice and by using the right strategies.
Yeah, it's like learning to play an instrument or playing a sport, It takes effort, it takes dedication.
And the right tools and resources. Right.
Yeah.
And, speaking of tools, we've talked about so many different techniques and examples and practice exercises.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the tools. Those are the things that can really help you.
Yeah, don't be afraid to revisit them. Experiment with them. Make them your own.
I love that it's like your personal toolkit for, crafting your career story.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of crafting your story, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
Don't just think about your career goals. Speak them into existence.
I like that.
The more you talk about them, the clearer they become. And I really believe that the closer you get to actually achieving them.
That's a great point. It's like planting a seed and nurturing it with words.
Yeah.
By voicing your goals, you're inviting opportunities, you're attracting support.
Right. You're holding yourself accountable.
Exactly.
It's about turning those aspirations into concrete plans.
And who knows, maybe by speaking your dreams out loud, you might inspire somebody else to pursue their own passions as well. Wow.
Oh, that's a beautiful thought. So to all of our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep believing in yourselves, and keep those conversations about your future going.
Yes, keep those aspirations soaring.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, Sarah. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in to the Learn English Lab. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us the thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives on useful English topics. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you in the lab. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. a special edition of the Deep Dive designed for all you English learners out there. I'm your host, Mike, and I'm so excited to have the amazing Sarah here today as our expert guide.
Hi, everyone.
Today, we're diving deep into the world of company culture.
It's such a crucial topic.
Oh, absolutely. It really is. For anyone looking to navigate the professional world, with confidence, whether you're prepping for that big job interview or just chatting with your colleagues, or maybe even just trying to understand the dynamics of a workplace. Being able to talk about company culture in English can really be a game changer.
Yeah, it really can.
I think some people listening might be thinking, though, company culture, that's a bit, abstract, isn't it? A little bit out there.
It's true. It can seem that way, but I think it's way more tangible than people realize.
Okay, so break it down for us then.
Well, you can think of it like this. Every single company has its own unique personality, its own vibe. You know what I mean? A feeling that sets it apart from others. And that's its company culture right there. It's like a mix of the company's values, their beliefs, their behaviors, all kind of blended together to create that special atmosphere that you experience when you walk through the door.
Okay, that makes total sense. Mm-hmm. But why is it so important to be able to talk about this, this vibe in English?
Well, imagine you're in a job interview, right? And the hiring manager says to you, so what kind of company culture do you see yourself thriving in if you can articulate your preferences clearly and confidently in English? It makes a world of difference.
Right. It's not just about landing the job either. It's about navigating the entire professional landscape. So Sarah, let's get practical. What kind of vocabulary do we need to really master to ace these company culture conversations?
Oh, there are so many awesome words we could talk about.
I bet.
But before we dive into those specific terms, how about we imagine a fictional company?
I love that.
We'll call them Innovate Tech, and we'll use them as our example.
Okay, Innovate Tech.
I like it.
What kind of company are they? What's their vibe?
Let's say they're a tech startup that really prides itself on being innovative and fast-paced. They're all about coming up with those cutting-edge solutions and pushing the boundaries in their industry.
Sounds like a pretty exciting place to work.
Definitely.
But innovative and fast-paced, those are pretty common terms.
Mm-hmm.
What other words could we use to describe a company like Innovate Tech?
That's a great question. Instead of just saying fast-paced, we could say that they have a really agile work environment, meaning they can quickly adapt to change, they make decisions on the fly, or we could say that their culture is results-oriented, really emphasizing their focus on hitting those ambitious goals.
Ah, I see. So it's about finding those nuanced words that really capture the true essence of the company.
Precisely.
But honestly, sometimes even simple words can be tricky for English learners, right? Mm-hmm. So can you maybe break down a few key terms that might be really helpful for our listeners?
Absolutely. Let's take the word transparent, for example. A transparent company culture means that information is openly shared and everyone's kept in the loop.
Okay, got it. So no one likes to be left in the dark, right? But can you give us a concrete example of how this transparency might actually play out in a workplace like Innovate Tech?
Sure. In a transparent culture, like at Innovate Tech, you might see regular company-wide meetings where they openly discuss financial performance, upcoming projects with all the employees, or maybe they have a system where employees can provide anonymous feedback to management.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So it's not just about saying you're transparent. It's about actually putting those systems in place that show that open communication.
Exactly. And that's where understanding the nuances of these words becomes so important.
For sure. Now, what about a word like collaborative? How would that manifest itself in Innovate Tech's company culture?
Well, in a collaborative culture at Innovate Tech, you might see teams working really closely together on projects, sharing ideas, expertise. They might even have an open office layout to encourage that communication, or use collaborative software tools to streamline their workflow.
Okay, so it's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable working together.
Yeah.
And sharing those different perspectives.
Exactly. Now, how do you think Innovate Tech's results-oriented approach might affect their employees day to day?
Oh, that's a good one. I imagine there's a lot of energy. There's a real sense of urgency in the air. Maybe employees have those regular check-ins to track their progress on projects, and there's clear metrics for success.
You're totally getting it. That's exactly how a company like Innovate Tech might translate its values into those tangible actions and behaviors.
Wow, this is really eye-opening. I'm starting to see how understanding these keywords can really help me decode the whole culture of a company.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not just about, memorizing definitions. It's about being able to use these words naturally and confidently in real-life conversations.
So how do we do that? How do we actually practice using these words in a way that feels authentic?
Great question. Let's say you're in a job interview and the interviewer asks you, so what kind of company culture do you thrive in? How would you answer using some of the vocabulary we've discussed today?
Okay, let me think. I could say something like, I really value a transparent and collaborative work environment where I can contribute my ideas and, learn from others. I also enjoy a fast-paced atmosphere where I can be challenged to achieve those big goals.
That's a great answer. You've clearly articulated your preferences, and you've even woven in some of those key vocabulary words.
Thanks. I'm starting to feel more comfortable using them already.
Awesome.
But what if I'm not in a formal setting, like a job interview? How can I use this vocabulary in more casual conversations, say with a colleague at work?
Okay, let's imagine you're chatting with a colleague at InnovateTech during your coffee break, and you want to get a better sense of their experience with the company culture. What might you ask them?
Let's see, I could say something like, hey, I'm really enjoying the collaborative atmosphere here. Have you always felt that way, or has the culture evolved over time?
That's a great open-ended question that invites your colleague to share their perspective, and you've naturally incorporated that word collaborative into the conversation.
I see. So it's about finding those natural opportunities to use these words in everyday interactions.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become.
Okay, so we've covered some key vocabulary and even practiced using it in different scenarios, but there's still so much more to explore.
Right. You're right. We haven't even talked about company values or the work environment, how to describe those all-important feelings and impressions you get when you walk into a new workplace for the first time.
And those are some really juicy topics.
They are indeed. So stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the world of company culture and English.
So we've talked about some key vocabulary, but what about the actual feeling of a workplace? How can we describe that in English?
That's a really good point. Describing the work environment and atmosphere is so important when you're talking about company culture. It's about painting that picture with words of what it's actually like to be there,
Right, to be in that space. So remember, InnovateTech, our fictional tech startup. Let's imagine walking into their office for the first time. What do you think we'd see?
Well, since they're all about innovation and collaboration, I imagine a very open office layout. Lots of natural light, maybe some comfy breakout spaces where teams can brainstorm and work together on their ideas.
You're spot on. And to describe that environment, we could use words like modern, dynamic, or open plan.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm getting a good visual here, but what about the atmosphere? Is it super serious and quiet? Or more relaxed and buzzing with energy?
I think because InnovateTech is so fast-paced and agile, I imagine there's a real buzz in the air. People are moving around, collaborating, and there's this feeling of excitement about the work they're doing.
Right, we could describe the atmosphere as energetic, vibrant, or even a little chaotic.
Yeah.
In a good way, of course.
Of course.
It sounds like a place where things are always moving and shaking, but not all companies are like that, right?
Yeah.
Some might have a more traditional or formal vibe.
Absolutely. Imagine a company called Legacy Corp, like a well-established financial firm with a long history. What kind of work environment and atmosphere would you expect there?
Okay, Legacy Core, that sounds much more formal and hierarchical. I'd probably picture individual offices or cubicles, maybe even some mahogany desks and plush carpets.
Oh, yeah, I can totally see that. And to describe this kind of environment, we could use words like traditional, corporate, or even reserved.
Right, and the atmosphere.
Probably a bit more subdued and professional.
Yeah.
Maybe a quiet focus in the air with people working diligently at their desks.
Exactly. So you see, even the words we choose to describe the environment and atmosphere can really say a lot about a company's culture.
They really can.
This is so helpful. I'm starting to see how I can use these descriptions to, differentiate between all these different company cultures. But what if I want to add my own personal touch to the conversation?
That's a great point. Remember, expressing your own opinions and experiences is really key to having a genuine conversation.
So instead of just listing off facts about a company, I could say something like, I really appreciate the open and collaborative atmosphere at InnovateTech. It reminds me of my previous company where we had a similar setup.
That's a perfect example. Or you could say, while I admire Legacy Corp's professionalism and history, I personally prefer a more dynamic and fast-paced work environment.
Those are such good examples. I'm feeling more comfortable expressing my preferences in English. Now, what about asking questions? How can I dig a little deeper and learn more about a company's culture?
Asking thoughtful questions is a fantastic way to show that you're genuinely interested, and it also helps to keep the conversation flowing naturally.
So what kind of questions could I ask someone about InnovateTech's culture?
You could ask something like, what are some of the things that InnovateTech does to foster innovation and collaboration? Or what's the work-life balance like here?
Those are great examples. And I could ask similar questions about Legacy Corp, right? Like how does Legacy Corp's long history influence its culture today? Or what opportunities are there for professional development within the company's structure?
But the key is to ask those open-ended questions that really encourage the other person to elaborate and share their insights.
This is all making so much sense now, but I still get nervous sometimes, especially in formal settings like job interviews. What advice would you give me for handling those tricky company culture questions?
It's totally normal to feel nervous. My biggest tip is to prepare beforehand. Think about your own values and preferences. What kind of work environment do you really thrive in? What are your deal breakers? And then practice articulating those thoughts clearly and concisely in English.
Okay, so preparation is key. But what if I'm asked a question about the company I'm interviewing for and I just don't know the answer?
That's where research comes in before any interview. Do your homework, check out the company's website, read their mission statement, browse their social media, maybe even look for employee reviews on sites like Glassdoor. That way you can say something like, "From what I've gathered, your company seems to have a strong emphasis on employee empowerment and professional development," which really resonates with me.
That's such a good strategy. So even if I'm not familiar with the company's culture firsthand, I can still show that I've taken the time to learn about their values and their approach.
Exactly. And that shows initiative and genuine interest, which are always impressive qualities in a candidate.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from defining company culture to exploring vocabulary, describing those work environments, and even practicing those all-important interview questions. I think our listeners are well on their way to becoming, company culture connoisseurs.
I agree. Remember, the key to fluency is practice. The more you use these phrases and sentence structures, the more confident and natural you'll become.
And that's what the Learn English Lab is all about, giving you the tools and confidence to navigate the world of English.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about empowering yourself with the language to express your thoughts and ideas effectively.
Exactly. So to recap our deep dive into company culture today, we started by discussing how to describe the work environment and atmosphere using vivid language to paint a picture of what it's actually like to be there.
Right, and we explored a range of vocabulary from modern and dynamic to traditional and reserved, highlighting how even those subtle word choices can convey a lot about a company's culture.
And we also emphasize the importance of expressing your own opinions and experiences using phrases like, "I appreciate," or "I prefer to add that personal touch to the conversation."
Yes. And of course, we practiced asking those insightful questions to keep the conversation flowing and really deepen your understanding.
It's all about feeling comfortable and confident when talking about company culture in English.
And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you use these tips and techniques, the more natural and fluent you'll become.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to experiment with the vocabulary, try out different sentence structures, and most importantly, have fun with it.
That's right. Learning a language is a journey, not a destination. So enjoy the ride and embrace the challenges along the way.
And who knows, maybe you'll even impress your colleagues with your newfound knowledge of company culture. And we also talked about how important company values are.
Yeah, those guiding principles, they really shape the heart of a company's culture.
Right. And we used Innovate Tech as an example. And we saw how values like innovation and collaboration can actually translate into those real world actions, like having those brainstorming spaces and encouraging open communication.
Right. And how those same values might look a bit different in a more traditional company like Legacy Corp. They might prioritize things like stability and expertise, which could manifest as focusing on long-term growth or a structured career progression path.
Exactly. So understanding a company's values can really give you that deeper insight into what it's actually like to work there.
Absolutely. And it can help you figure out if your own values align with theirs, which is super important for finding a workplace where you'll feel happy and, fulfilled.
I totally agree. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to touch upon a question that I know a lot of English learners might have.
Go ahead.
How do you actually discover a company's culture? I mean, it's not always spelled out on their website, is it?
That's such a good question. It's true. Company culture is often something you have to piece together.
Ooh, I like that analogy, like a puzzle.
Exactly, like a puzzle. So what are some of those puzzle pieces we can look for?
Right.
Well, the first piece is definitely research, as we mentioned earlier. Check out the company's website, their social media, any articles, reviews you can find online.
But those can be a bit polished and PR driven sometimes. How can we get a more authentic sense of the culture?
That's where networking comes in. Talking to people who actually work or have worked at the company can give you invaluable insights. Ask them about their experiences, what they liked, what they didn't like, what surprised them about the culture.
That's such a good tip. It's like getting that insider information. And during the interview process itself, are there any questions we can ask to kind of get a better feel for the culture?
For sure. You could ask things like, can you describe a typical day in this role? Or how does the company celebrate successes? Or even what are some challenges that the team is currently facing?
Those are fantastic. They go way beyond the superficial and really get to the heart of what it's actually like to work there.
Exactly. Remember, a job interview is a two-way street. You're not just trying to impress them, they're also trying to impress you.
I love that mindset shift. It's about finding the right fit for both sides.
Precisely so. Don't be afraid to ask those culture-focused questions that will help you make a really informed decision.
Well, Sarah, this has been such an insightful deep dive into company culture. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have too.
It's been my pleasure sharing these tips and strategies with you and everyone listening. Remember, the key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep exploring this fascinating world of English.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to all our amazing Learn English Lab listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
And remember, you're not alone on this path. We're here to support you every step of the way.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more exciting English learning adventures.
Until next time, happy learning, everyone.
Bye for now. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving into something that's pretty essential. Whether you work with customers all the time or just want to handle those everyday conversations more smoothly, we're going to be talking about handling customer complaints in English.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We've all been there, right? You've got a problem, you're trying to explain it, and it just feels like you're talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so excited to have Sarah, our expert, here with us.
Yay.
To kind of break down how we can turn those, frustrating situations into opportunities for some positive interaction and problem solving.
I love it.
So Sarah, how can we master this delicate dance of handling complaints with grace and clarity while using English effectively?
Well, Mike, it's really all about having a clear framework to follow.
Okay.
You can think of it as a 6-step process that can guide you towards a successful resolution, regardless of what the specific complaint is.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right.
What's step 1?
The foundation of everything is staying calm and positive, even if the customer is upset.
Right.
Your ability to maintain your own composure really sets the tone for a productive conversation.
Oh, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I once had a manager who could diffuse even the most heated situations with his incredible calmness.
Wow.
It was almost like a superpower.
Nice.
But how do you actually do that when someone is practically breathing fire down your neck?
Well, it's about remembering that you're in control of your own reactions. A deep breath can work wonders in those moments.
Yeah.
Just remind yourself that your goal is to help.
Right.
And let that guide your response.
Okay, deep breaths. Check.
Check.
What comes next in this complaint handling dance?
Step 2 is all about active listening.
Okay.
So often complaints arise simply because people don't feel heard.
Right.
It's less about the actual problem itself and more about feeling acknowledged and understood.
It's like they say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly.
Right. And listening is a huge part of showing that you care.
For sure.
But it's more than just hearing the words, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about truly absorbing what the person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Right.
Pay attention to their tone, their body language, and what's behind the words themselves.
So it's not just about finding the right words to say.
Right.
But it's also about really tuning in to what the other person is communicating.
Precisely. Think of it like solving a puzzle.
Okay.
You can't just force pieces together.
Yeah.
You have to carefully examine each one, see how it fits with the others,
Right.
and listen to what the picture is telling you.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Okay, we're calm. We're listening attentively.
Yes.
What's the next move?
Now we bring in a really powerful tool,
Okay.
empathy. Step 3 is all about showing empathy and offering a sincere apology, even if the problem isn't your direct fault.
Okay, so I can see how a genuine apology can kind of de-escalate things, but doesn't that risk making you seem responsible even if you're not?
Well, it's not about accepting blame.
Okay.
It's more about acknowledging the customer's experience.
Right.
And expressing that you understand their frustration.
Mm-hmm.
A simple phrase like,
Yeah.
"I'm so sorry for the inconvenience this has caused," can go a long way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It's about validating their feelings, even if the situation's outside of your control.
for sure.
It makes sense when you put it like that.
Yeah.
So we've listened, empathized, apologized.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to jump into problem-solving mode now?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
There's another crucial step
Okay.
before we offer solutions,
Mm-hmm.
asking questions.
The classic seek first to understand approach.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be especially important in this context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Step 4 is all about asking the right question
Okay.
to get to the heart of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
This is where your English skills will truly shine.
Okay.
Use polite, open-ended questions to gather all the necessary information.
So things like, can you tell me more about what happened?
Yeah.
Or when did you first notice this issue?
Right. And the beauty of asking questions
Yeah.
is that not only does it help you understand the situation better,
Mm-hmm.
but it also shows the customer that you're genuinely invested in finding a solution.
Oh, that reminds me of a time when,
Oh, yeah.
well, this is a good one.
Okay.
I was working at this tech store,
Okay.
and this customer came in fuming about his new phone.
Oh, no.
He kept saying it was broken, but he couldn't explain what was wrong.
Oh, geez.
Instead of getting flustered,
Yeah.
I remember those deep breaths,
Good.
and I asked him to walk me through what was happening
Mhm.
when he tried to use it. And guess what?
What?
Turns out he hadn't removed the protective film from the screen.
Oh, classic.
It's amazing how asking the right question can just completely transform
Yeah,
a potentially tense interaction.
for sure.
We went from a near shouting match.
Wow.
To me, I like gently peeling off the film as the customer turned bright red with embarrassment.
Oh, my goodness.
But hey, at least the phone wasn't actually broken.
That's a good thing.
So we've gathered all the information,
Yeah.
we listened carefully,
Mhm.
we've expressed empathy.
Yes.
What's next in our complaint handling journey?
Now we finally get to play the hero.
Okay.
Step 5 is offering a solution.
All right. This is where we get to make things right.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But clarity is key here.
Okay.
Explain the proposed solution clearly.
Mhm.
Set realistic expectations.
Okay.
And whenever possible, give the customer choices to empower them.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's say a customer is complaining that their online order arrived damaged.
Okay.
How might we approach that?
You could say something like, "I'm so sorry to hear that your order arrived damaged. I can certainly arrange for a replacement to be sent out to you immediately.
Okay.
Would you prefer that? Or
Mhm.
would you like to receive a full refund?"
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. It provides options.
Mm-hmm.
It puts the customer back in the driver's seat.
Right?
But what if it's a more complex issue
Mm-hmm.
and there's no immediate solution?
That's a great point, Mike. Sometimes you'll need more time to investigate.
Okay.
In those cases, transparency is crucial.
So instead of making promises we might not be able to keep.
Right.
Yeah.
You acknowledge the issue,
Mhm.
explain the steps you'll take to address it,
Right.
and provide a clear timeline for updates.
So for example, we could say something like,
Yeah.
I understand this is frustrating
Mm-hmm.
and I want to make sure we find a solution for you.
Right.
I'm going to look into this further
Yes.
and we'll get back to you with an update by the end of the day tomorrow. Would that work for you?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all about managing expectations,
Mm-hmm.
being honest, and demonstrating that you're taking ownership of the situation.
It's like you're building a bridge of trust,
Yeah.
even when there's a bit of a bumpy road.
Exactly.
I like that.
And that brings us to our final step,
Okay.
taking action and following up.
Ah, yes. The actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Part of the equation.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just offer solutions.
Right.
You have to make sure you deliver on those promises promptly and efficiently.
I imagine this also ties back to that whole customer loyalty thing we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
A simple follow-up
Yeah.
can transform a potentially negative experience into a positive one,
Right.
leaving the customer feeling valued and heard.
You know, it's fascinating how these principles apply not just to customer service,
Yeah,
but to so many areas of life.
totally.
Relationships, friendships, even dealing with family. It's about clear communication
Yes,
and building trust.
it really is.
So to recap, we've covered the 6 steps to handling customer complaints with grace and confidence in English.
Yes.
Starting with staying calm and positive,
Mm-hmm.
then actively listening,
Yes.
showing empathy, and apologizing, asking clarifying questions,
Yes.
offering solutions, and finally taking action and following up.
Yes.
It's like a recipe
It is.
for turning a potential disaster into a positive outcome.
Absolutely.
I like that.
And remember, practice makes perfect. It's all about being mindful, present,
Yeah,
and genuinely committed to resolving the issue at hand.
I love that. Mindful, present, and committed.
Yes.
It's almost like a mantra for effective communication in any language.
For sure.
But it also seems like a lot to keep in mind,
Yeah.
especially when you're in the heat of the moment.
It is.
Yeah.
The more you practice,
Okay.
the more natural and effortless it becomes.
Right.
It's like learning a new dance move.
Okay.
At first, it feels awkward and clunky, but with repetition, it becomes fluid and graceful. Yeah.
You'll find yourself navigating these situations
Yeah.
with more ease and confidence.
Speaking of dance moves,
Okay.
is there one particular step from our complaint handling routine that you find most people struggle with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Something we should maybe double down on.
You know, I think where a lot of people trip up is that crucial step
Okay.
of asking questions.
Okay.
They're so focused on offering a solution
Yeah.
that they kind of forget to really dig deep
Right.
and understand the problem first.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet without first figuring out where the leak is coming from.
Exactly.
You might end up making things worse. So.
Right. So I would encourage everyone listening to really focus on honing those questioning skills.
Okay.
Practice using open-ended questions. Pay attention to the answers.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask for clarification if something isn't clear.
It's like being a detective gathering all the clues
Yes.
before making a judgment.
Exactly. And speaking of judgments, I think a lot of us also struggle with that initial reaction
Yeah.
of getting defensive
Yeah.
when someone is complaining.
Yeah. It's natural.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a human response.
It is a human response.
But remember,
Yeah.
the complaint isn't usually about you personally.
Right.
It's about the situation
Exactly.
and how it's impacting the customer.
Yes.
So it's almost like we need to depersonalize the complaint
Yes.
and see it as an opportunity to learn and improve.
Exactly. Instead of viewing complaints as attacks, try to see them as valuable feedback.
Yeah.
They can highlight areas where your product, service, or communication can be improved.
That's a great way to reframe it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the 6 steps.
We have.
But I'm curious,
Yeah.
are there any specific phrases or words that you find particularly helpful
Ooh, yes.
when handling complaints in English? Things that can help smooth things over
Yeah.
and create a more positive tone.
Definitely. One of my go-to phrases is, let's see what we can do.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It conveys a willingness to help
Yeah.
and a sense of collaboration.
Yes. And it avoids making promises that you might not be able to keep
Right?
while still reassuring the customer that you're on their side.
Exactly.
Another useful phrase is, I understand your frustration. It acknowledges their feelings.
Right.
And shows empathy, which can really de-escalate the situation.
And sometimes all it takes is a simple, thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Yes.
It shows that you value their feedback and appreciate them taking the time to share their concerns.
Exactly.
It's all about creating a more positive
Yes.
and collaborative dynamic,
Yes.
even when dealing with a difficult situation.
It is.
I'm loving these tips, Sarah.
Thanks.
This has been incredibly insightful so far.
Good.
Now, before we jump into like the specific language techniques you mentioned,
Yeah.
I want to quickly address something for our listeners
Okay.
who might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great,
Yeah.
but what if the customer's being completely unreasonable?
Right.
How do you handle those situations where you're dealing with someone who's just plain angry?
Yeah.
Maybe even rude.
That's a fantastic question, Mike. And it's something we'll explore in depth
What?
in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll talk about strategies for staying calm and assertive,
Okay.
even in the face of hostility. And we'll delve into specific language techniques that can help you navigate those tricky conversations.
I can't wait.
Me too.
But for now,
Yeah.
we'll leave our listeners with that cliffhanger.
Okay.
Make sure you come back for part 2, where we'll tackle those challenging customer interactions head on.
I'll be here.
Awesome.
See you soon.
All right, see you then. Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. We're continuing our deep dive into handling customer complaints in English.
Yes.
And now we're getting to the really juicy stuff.
All right.
What happens when the customer isn't just unhappy, but maybe even downright unreasonable?
Right. It's one thing to follow those 6 steps when you're dealing with a calm and rational person.
Right.
But what about when emotions are running high?
Yeah,
And the conversation feels like it's on the verge of going off the rails?
I'm all ears. Because honestly, those are the situations that make my palms sweat just thinking about them.
Yeah.
So what are some of your top tips for staying grounded when the customer is anything but?
Well, first and foremost, remember that deep breathing technique we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
It's even more crucial in these heated situations.
Okay.
Take a moment to center yourself before responding and remind yourself that you're not obligated to tolerate abuse.
So setting boundaries is important, right?
Absolutely.
We're talking about handling complaints, effectively not being doormats.
Yes.
But how do you do that without escalating the situation further?
That's where clear and assertive communication comes in.
Okay.
You can acknowledge the customer's feelings without condoning their behavior. For example, you might say, I understand that you're frustrated,
Okay.
but I need you to speak to me respectfully.
That's a good one. Sets a clear boundary without being aggressive.
Right.
It's like, I'm here to help, but let's keep this civil.
Exactly.
Are there any other phrases you find particularly helpful in these situations?
Absolutely. Another one I like is, I want to help resolve this issue, but I need your cooperation.
Okay.
It emphasizes that you're on their side,
Mm-hmm.
but also sets the expectation for respectful communication.
It's like you're saying, we're in this together, but let's work together constructively.
Exactly.
It reminds me a bit of those conflict resolution techniques where you focus on shared goals
Yes.
rather than getting bogged down in the negativity.
Exactly.
And if the customer continues to be abusive or disrespectful, despite your efforts, you have the right to disengage from the conversation.
You do.
Okay, so knowing when to walk away is also important.
Yeah.
It's not about giving in, but about protecting your own well-being and ensuring that the interaction remains productive.
Exactly.
But what do you say when you're disengaging?
Right.
That seems tricky.
It's all about being firm yet polite.
Okay.
You might say something like, I'm unable to assist you further if you continue to use this language. Please contact our customer service department at provide number or email when you're ready to discuss this calmly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're giving them an alternative way to address their concerns,
Right.
but also making it clear that you won't tolerate disrespectful behavior.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about those specific language techniques you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Are there certain words or phrases that can help de-escalate these tense situations and bring the conversation back to a calmer level?
Absolutely. One technique is to use calming and neutral language.
Okay.
Avoid getting drawn into emotional responses or mirroring the customer's anger.
Right.
Instead, focus on words that convey understanding and a willingness to help.
So instead of saying, you're wrong,
Yes.
which is likely to just inflame things further,
Yes.
maybe you could say something like, I see why you might feel that way,
Right.
which acknowledges their perspective without necessarily agreeing with it.
Exactly.
Another helpful technique is to use I statements instead of you statements.
Yes.
For example, instead of saying, you didn't explain this clearly,
Right.
which can sound accusatory, you could say, I'm not sure I understand. Explain the point of confusion.
Perfect.
So it's about taking ownership of your own understanding rather than placing blame on the customer.
Exactly.
It's a subtle shift in language, but it can make a huge difference in how the message is received.
They really can.
Now, we've talked a lot about what to say,
We have.
but I'm curious, are there any nonverbal cues that can be helpful in these situations?
Absolutely.
Body language, tone of voice, that sort of thing.
Nonverbal communication is just as important as verbal communication,
Okay.
especially when dealing with upset customers. Maintaining eye contact, keeping an open and relaxed posture, and speaking in a calm and even tone of voice
Okay.
can all help to convey respect and a willingness to listen.
So it's about projecting an image of calm confidence,
Yes.
even if you're feeling a bit flustered on the inside.
Precisely. Your demeanor can have a powerful impact
Yeah.
on how the customer perceives you and how the interaction unfolds.
This is fascinating stuff, Sarah.
That's
I'm learning so much from you today.
good. I'm glad.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something we haven't discussed yet.
Okay.
What about cultural differences? How do those play into handling customer complaints in English?
That's a great question, Mike. And it's an important one to consider,
Yeah.
especially in today's globalized world.
Right.
Cultural norms around communication, politeness, and expressing dissatisfaction can vary widely. And what might be considered acceptable in one culture could be perceived as rude or offensive in another.
So even though we're focusing on English, it's important to remember that English is spoken all over the world. And those cultural nuances can really impact how our words are interpreted, right?
You got it. For example, some cultures place a high value on indirect communication,
Okay.
where meaning is conveyed more through context and subtle cues, rather than direct statements.
Okay.
So a complaint might be expressed more subtly, or even through a third party.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about learning the language,
Right.
but also about understanding the cultural context in which it's being used.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where things like active listening and asking clarifying questions become even more crucial.
Right.
If you're not sure what the customer is trying to communicate, don't hesitate to ask for clarification.
It's better to ask and be sure than to make assumptions
Yes.
and potentially create a misunderstanding, right?
Exactly.
And remember, even within English-speaking cultures, there can be regional variations in communication styles.
Absolutely.
So it's always a good idea to be mindful of those differences
Yes.
and adapt your approach accordingly. This is all incredibly helpful, Sarah. I feel like I'm armed with a whole new arsenal of tools and techniques for handling customer complaints in English. And it's not just about the language.
Yeah.
It's about understanding human psychology,
Yes.
cultural nuances, and those all-important nonverbal cues.
You've summed it up perfectly, Mike.
Awesome.
It's about approaching these situations with empathy, clarity, and a genuine desire to find a solution that works for everyone involved.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But there's one final piece of this puzzle that I want to explore before we wrap up.
Okay.
It's something that can sometimes feel a bit awkward, even in your native language, but it's absolutely crucial for turning a negative experience into a positive one.
No, I think I know where you're going with this, Mike.
Okay.
You're talking about that all-important sixth step following up.
You got it. And it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and then just breathe a sigh of relief when the interaction is over.
Right.
But that final step of following up can make all the difference.
You're absolutely right. A well-executed follow-up shows the customer that you truly care about their experience and that you're committed to ensuring their satisfaction.
Right.
It can turn a potentially negative interaction into an opportunity to build trust and loyalty.
So let's talk about the art of the follow-up. What are some key things to keep in mind when reaching out to a customer after handling a complaint?
Well, first and foremost, timeliness is crucial.
Okay.
You want to follow up promptly while the interaction is still fresh in the customer's mind.
Right.
Ideally within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, makes sense. You don't want them to feel like they've been forgotten.
Exactly.
Or that their complaint wasn't taken seriously.
Right.
But what do you actually say in a follow-up?
It depends on the nature of the complaint and the resolution that was reached.
Okay.
But in general, you want to start by thanking the customer for bringing the issue to your attention and reiterating your commitment to providing excellent service.
So something like, thank you again for letting us know about mentioning the issue. We appreciate your feedback.
Yes.
And want to assure you that we're committed to providing the best possible experience for all of our customers.
Exactly. You can then briefly summarize the actions that were taken to address the complaint.
Right.
And confirm that the issue has been resolved to their satisfaction.
So if we were dealing with that damaged online order from earlier, we might say something like, we've processed your refund and you should see the credit back on your account within 3 to 5 business days. Please let us know if you have any further questions.
Perfect.
And if the issue wasn't fully resolved during the initial interaction, you can provide an update on the progress being made.
Right.
And to show the customer that you're working diligently to find a solution.
Exactly.
For example, we're still looking into the issue with your order, but we'll be sure to keep you updated and let you know as soon as we have more information.
Exactly. And remember, the tone of your follow-up is just as important as the content. Be professional, courteous, and empathetic.
Okay.
You want to leave the customer with a positive feeling and reinforce the message that their feedback is valued.
This has been such an insightful conversation, Sarah.
Thank you.
We've covered everything from staying calm under pressure to mastering the art of the follow-up. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new toolkit for handling customer complaints in English. And not just the language itself, but all those subtle but crucial aspects of communication that can make or break an interaction.
You got it.
Me too, Mike.
Right.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and our listeners.
Absolutely.
I hope everyone who's tuned in today feels more confident and prepared to navigate those challenging customer interactions.
For sure.
Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. We're wrapping up our deep dive into handling customer complaints in English.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about this next part.
Okay.
We've talked about the framework, those crucial 6 steps, and how to stay calm even when the customer is throwing sparks.
Right.
But now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the language itself.
Okay.
Sarah, are there any magic words or phrases that can help us navigate these tricky conversations more smoothly?
Well, Mike, while there are no literal magic spells in English,
Right.
there are definitely some linguistic techniques that can work wonders in these situations.
Okay.
One of the most powerful tools in your arsenal is empathetic language.
Okay, we've talked about empathy as a concept,
Right.
but how do you actually put it into words? Give me some examples.
Of course, phrases like, I understand how frustrating this must be, or I can see why you're upset, can go a long way in validating the customer's feelings and diffusing tension.
So it's about acknowledging their emotional state,
Yes.
showing them that you're not just brushing off their concerns.
Precisely. Another useful technique is to use softening language.
Okay.
Words like perhaps, maybe, and possibly can make your statement sound less definitive and more open to discussion.
That's interesting. So instead of saying, this is how it works, which can sound a bit dismissive,
Right.
you might say, perhaps we could try this approach,
Right.
which creates a more collaborative tone.
Exactly. It's about making the customer feel like they're part of the solution-finding process, not just being dictated to.
I love that. It's like you're saying, let's figure this out together,
Yes.
rather than this is the way it is, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
What are some other phrases that can help create this sense of collaboration?
Asking for the customer's input can be really effective.
Okay.
Phrases like, what are your thoughts on this? Or, would this solution work for you? Empower the customer and make them feel heard.
And it also shows that you're genuinely interested in finding a solution that meets their needs, not just trying to get them off the phone as quickly as possible.
Right. It's about building a rapport even in a potentially negative situation.
Now, we've talked a lot about diffusing tension and finding solutions.
We have.
But what about those times when you simply can't give the customer what they want? How do you deliver bad news in a way that doesn't make them feel like they're hitting another brick wall?
That's a great question, Mike. And it's a situation where those softening techniques we talked about earlier become even more crucial.
Okay.
Instead of saying a flat-out no,
Right.
try phrasing it as, unfortunately, I'm unable to do that at this time, but,
Okay.
and then offer an alternative solution or explanation.
So it's about cushioning the blow, so to speak.
Right.
You're acknowledging that you can't meet their request directly, but you're still trying to find a way to help.
Exactly. And even if there's no immediate solution, you can still express your understanding
Okay.
and offer to explore other options. For example, you could say, I understand this isn't the outcome you were hoping for,
Right.
but let me see what other options might be available.
It's like you're saying, I'm not giving up on you.
Yep.
Let's keep working together to find a solution that works.
Exactly.
And even if you can't ultimately solve the problem yourself, knowing that someone is in your corner and genuinely trying to help can make a huge difference in how the customer feels about the experience.
Absolutely. It's all about managing expectations and keeping the lines of communication open.
This has been incredibly helpful, Sarah. I feel like I have a much better grasp of how to use language effectively to navigate those tricky customer interactions.
Awesome.
And it's not just about memorizing phrases.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying principles of empathy, collaboration, and clear communication.
You got it, Mike. And remember, the more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become in using these techniques. Don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you in different situations.
That's great advice.
Oh.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into handling customer complaints in English.
It has been.
And for all of you tuning in, remember, handling customer complaints effectively isn't just a skill for the workplace. It's a valuable life skill that can help you navigate all sorts of challenging conversations with grace and confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more English learning tips and tricks.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future deep dives.
Until next time, happy learning, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're going deep on something so important in the professional world, how to introduce yourself well in English. Whether you're getting ready for a big interview, maybe meeting new colleagues, or just want to get better at communicating in English, we're here to help. And joining me today is Sarah. She helps people make those first impressions really count.
That's right, Mike. Those first impressions are so important. A really good intro can make all the difference, whether it's a job interview, a networking thing, or even just day one at a new job.
Okay, so introductions, we know they're important, but what makes a good one stand out? What makes some fall flat?
I think a really big thing is context. You wouldn't introduce yourself the same way at like a casual industry get-together as you would at a formal job interview, right? There are these little differences for each situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I never thought of it quite like that before. How do you know which way to go? Which approach is right?
It's about really paying attention to who you're talking to and what you want to achieve. Ask yourself, who are they? What kind of impression do you want to make? What are you hoping to get out of this introduction?
So it's not like just memorizing a script. It's more about being flexible and changing your message to fit the situation.
Exactly. But even though each introduction will be different, there's a kind of basic structure you can use to make sure you cover everything. Think of it like a framework.
Oh, like that, a framework. Okay, so what are the key pieces? Pretend I'm a total beginner. Walk me through it.
All right, so first you have your greeting. Simple and appropriate to the situation. Hello, good morning, good evening, the basics.
Right, friendly and straightforward. What's next?
Then you introduce yourself, state your full name clearly, and if your name is hard to pronounce, this is a good time to give a tip, like it's pronounced Anya, not Anna.
That's a nice touch, especially when you're working with people from all over the world. It shows respect and understanding right from the start.
Exactly. After that, you mention your job title or your role. This helps people understand what you do and where you're coming from. For example, I'm a software developer or I'm a project manager.
Okay, got it. Greeting name and job title. What comes after that?
This is where you can talk a bit about your experience. Briefly mention some of your background or what you're good at, but keep it short and focused. Remember, this isn't your whole resume.
So you're picking out the details that matter most to the people you're talking to.
You got it. Then you want to be clear about why you're introducing yourself. What are you hoping to accomplish? This shows you're engaged and helps steer the conversation.
For example, at a job interview, you might say something like, I'm really excited to learn more about this opportunity and how my skills can help your team.
Perfect. Or at a networking event, maybe you'd say, I'm here to connect with other people in tech and see if we can work together.
I see how this framework works. Each part builds on the last, creating a nice, clear introduction.
Exactly. And to finish it off, you end with a polite closing and maybe an invitation to talk more. Something like, I look forward to hearing what you think, or I'd love to chat more later.
So it's about leaving things open for more conversation and building relationships.
Yeah.
This is really helpful, Sarah. I feel like I'm getting a much better idea of how to structure a professional introduction. But what about those times when you have a bit more freedom to say more? Like at a networking event or a conference, how do you find that balance between giving enough info and not overwhelming people?
That's a great question, and that's where storytelling comes in. Instead of just listing your achievements, think about how you can tell a story that makes people interested and want to know more.
So it's not just the facts, it's how you present them. Give them a little taste of who you are and what makes you different.
Right. And remember, you can use your voice and your body language to make your introduction even stronger. Enthusiasm is catchy.
Yeah, a genuine smile and a confident handshake can make a big difference.
And speaking of making a difference, let's talk about some common mistakes people make when introducing themselves. We all do them sometimes, but knowing about them can help you avoid them.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I know I've made my share of mistakes. What are some of the big ones to watch out for?
Well, one is talking too fast, especially when we're nervous. Slow down, speak clearly, and give people time to process what you're saying.
Oh, I know that feeling. My mind races and the words just tumble out.
Another one is putting too much detail in your introduction. Remember, it's just a quick snapshot, not your whole life story. Stick to the important points.
Keep it short and sweet. Got it. What else should we try to avoid?
A lack of enthusiasm is a big one. Even if you're a little nervous, try to project confidence and real interest. Smile, make eye contact, let your passion show.
Enthusiasm is contagious, isn't it? It makes you more approachable and people remember you.
Absolutely. And finally, don't forget to pay attention to your audience. Change your introduction based on who they are and what the situation is. It shows you're paying attention and being respectful.
So don't just give a memorized speech. Be present and engage with the people you're talking to.
Exactly. It's all about connecting with people. Now let's talk about some practical ways to practice and get better at introductions. Because like anything, practice makes perfect.
This is what I was waiting for. I love practical tips. What do you suggest?
First, I'd recommend writing out introductions for different situations like networking events, job interviews, meeting new colleagues. It helps you organize your thoughts and tailor your message.
It's like building a little introduction toolbox. I love that idea.
And don't underestimate recording yourself practicing. I know it can feel a bit weird at first, but it's really helpful. You'll hear how you sound, find any parts where you stumble and work on your pacing and delivery.
It's like having your own personal speech coach.
Exactly. You can even try recording yourself in different places, like a quiet room or a busy coffee shop, to get used to speaking clearly in different environments.
Wow, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. What about practicing with other people?
That's where role-playing comes in. Find a friend, a family member, or a language partner and take turns being the interviewer and the interviewee, or pretend you're networking at an event. It's a fun and easy way to get feedback and improve.
And you can switch roles and learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to be creative with your practice. The more you try things out and put yourself out there, the more confident and natural you'll become.
So it's all about finding what works for you and making practice a regular thing.
Right. And remember, practice doesn't have to be formal or take a lot of time. You can practice your intro in the shower while you're driving or even while you're waiting in line at the store. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel.
So true. It's all about fitting practice into your everyday life.
Now let's talk about some other resources that can help you develop your English skills even more. There are so many great tools and platforms out there, both online and offline.
Oh, I'm all ears. I'm always looking for new ways to improve my English. What are some of your favorites?
Well, one I really recommend is joining an English conversation group or a language exchange program. There are awesome opportunities to practice speaking with native speakers and other learners in a relaxed and helpful environment.
And you can learn so much from each other's experiences and different perspectives.
You got it. Another good resource is online language learning platforms. There are tons of options out there, from interactive exercises and grammar lessons to personalized feedback and pronunciation practice.
It's amazing how technology has made learning languages so easy.
It really has. And don't forget about good old-fashioned books and audiobooks. Immerse yourself in English literature, listen to podcasts, watch movies and TV shows. The more you're around the language, the more natural it will become.
So it's about making an immersive learning environment and making English a part of your everyday life.
Precisely. And remember, learning a language is a journey that never really ends. There's always something new to learn and get better at. Embrace the challenge, have fun, and celebrate your progress along the way.
That's such an inspiring message. And speaking of celebrating progress, I think we've covered a lot today, Sarah. From the structure of a professional introduction to the art of storytelling and dealing with nerves, we've really dug into how to make a great first impression.
It's been a pleasure sharing these ideas with you, Mike, and with everyone listening who are on this awesome journey of improving their English skills. Remember, every interaction is a chance to connect, to learn, and to grow.
And those connections can lead to amazing things, both personally and professionally. So to everyone out there, we encourage you to take what you've learned today and use it. Create your own introductions, practice them, get feedback, and most importantly, share them with confidence.
Go out there and shine.
This deep dive has been all about helping you make those introductions count. And if you found it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab for more deep dives into the world of English communication. We're here to help you improve and reach your goals. We'll see you next time.
Until then, happy practicing.
And remember, the world is waiting to hear your story.
Yeah, it really is about taking ownership of your story. I think people sometimes forget that they get so caught up in trying to say the right things that their personality gets lost.
It's like you're trying to fit into this mold instead of showing what makes them special.
Yes. And it's too bad, because being genuine is really powerful. People can tell when an introduction is generic.
Okay, so we've talked about structure and storytelling, but I'm curious about the content itself. What are some things you can actually say in your introduction to really grab people's attention?
That's where your creativity comes in. Think about what makes you different from others in your field. What are you passionate about? What special skills or experiences do you have?
So it could be anything, like a specific project you worked on, or maybe volunteer work that changed your perspective.
Absolutely. Even a hobby or something you're interested in that shows your personality or matches the company's values can be a good way to start a conversation.
That's so true. I once met someone at a conference who just casually mentioned they loved rock climbing. And it turned out the company's CEO was a huge climber too. They totally hit it off.
See, it's those unexpected things that can make an introduction memorable.
This is great, Sarah. I'm starting to feel like I can actually make an introduction that's both informative and interesting. But let's be real for a second. Even with all this advice, nerves can still get to us, especially in stressful situations like job interviews. Any tips for staying calm under pressure?
Definitely. First things first, remember to breathe. Deep breaths can really help calm you down. And it might sound cheesy, but try to picture yourself doing well. Imagine walking into that room, giving a confident intro, and making a great first impression.
It's all about positive thinking. And preparation, of course.
Absolutely. The more prepared you are, the less anxious you'll feel. Practice your introduction, but don't try to memorize it word for word. You want it to sound natural.
And if you trip over a word or two, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Exactly. The important thing is to keep going and not let a little slip up ruin your whole intro. Most people are more understanding than you think. They've probably been there themselves.
So breathe, visualize success practice, and don't be afraid to be yourself. Great advice. Speaking of practice, I know you talked about some techniques earlier. Could you tell us a little more about those?
Sure. As we discussed, writing out your introductions for different situations is a great place to start. It helps you get your thoughts clear and target your message to specific people, but then you want to take it up a notch.
So what's the next level of practice?
Recording yourself. I know it can feel a little awkward, but believe me, it's super helpful. You'll be able to hear how you sound, find places where you tend to stumble, and work on your pacing and delivery.
It's like having your own personal speech coach.
Exactly. You can even record yourself in different environments, like a quiet room versus a noisy coffee shop, to get used to speaking clearly anywhere.
Wow, I never thought about that. That's a really good tip. What about practicing with other people?
That's where role-playing is so useful. Find a friend, a family member, or a language partner, and take turns being the interviewer and the person being interviewed, or practice networking at a made-up event. It's a fun, low-pressure way to get feedback and improve.
And you can switch roles and learn from each other.
Precisely. Don't be afraid to get creative. The more you experiment and put yourself out there, the more confident you'll become.
So find what works for you and make practice a regular habit.
Right. And remember, practice doesn't have to be formal or take up a ton of time. You can practice in the shower while you're driving or even in line at the grocery store. The more you do it, the more natural it will feel.
So true. It's all about making practice part of your day.
Okay, now let's switch gears and talk about other resources that can help you improve your English skills. There are so many great tools and platforms available.
Well, I'm definitely interested. I'm always looking for ways to get better at English. What are some of your go-to resources?
Well, one I strongly recommend is joining an English conversation group or a language exchange program. Those are fantastic ways to practice speaking with native speakers and other learners in a relaxed and supportive setting.
And you can learn so much from each other's different perspectives.
Exactly. Another great resource is online language learning platforms. There are so many options, from interactive exercises and grammar lessons to personalized feedback and help with pronunciation.
It's incredible how technology has made language learning so accessible.
It really has. And don't forget about good old-fashioned books and audiobooks. Dive into English literature, listen to podcasts, watch movies and TV shows. The more exposure you have, the better.
So it's all about creating an immersive experience and making English a part of your daily routine.
Exactly. And remember, learning a language is a journey. It never really ends. There's always something new to discover and ways to improve. Embrace the challenges, have fun, and celebrate your progress.
That's a great message. And speaking of celebrating progress, I think we've covered a lot today, Sarah. We talked about the structure of professional introductions, the art of storytelling, and dealing with nerves.
Yeah.
We really got into how to make a fantastic first impression.
It's been great sharing these ideas with you, Mike, and with everyone listening who is on this journey of improving their English. Remember, every interaction is an opportunity to connect, to learn, and to grow.
And those connections can open up so many doors for you. So to all our listeners, we encourage you to take what you've learned and put it into action. Create your own introductions, practice them, get feedback, and most importantly, share them with confidence.
Go out there and make it happen.
This deep dive has been all about helping you make those introductions count. And if you found it useful, we'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab for more deep dives into the world of English communication. We'll see you next time.
Until then, happy practicing.
And remember, the world is waiting to hear your story.
Absolutely. And one thing I've noticed is that people often don't realize how important nonverbal communication is.
Now that's interesting. I've heard that those nonverbal cues can sometimes be even more powerful than words. What should we be thinking about?
Well, first of all, eye contact is huge. It shows you're engaged and interested in the person you're talking to. But you don't want to stare them down. Just aim for natural, comfortable eye contact.
Right, you don't want to make anyone feel weird.
Exactly. And then there's your posture. Stand tall, shoulders back, head up. It shows confidence and that you're approachable.
Like you're saying, hey, I'm here and I'm happy to be here.
You got it. And don't forget about your facial expressions. A genuine smile can really make a difference. It shows you're friendly.
I've definitely noticed that people who smile are more magnetic and memorable.
Absolutely. And even small things like nodding your head to show you're listening or using open hand gestures can make you seem more engaging and trustworthy.
So it's about being aware of our whole presence, not just the words we're saying.
Exactly. It's about creating a whole impression that matches what you're trying to say.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, Sarah. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how to introduce myself. I used to think it was just about saying facts, but now I see it's so much more. It's about storytelling, it's about confidence, it's about connecting with people authentically.
And it's about practice. Don't forget that the more you practice, the more confident and natural you'll become.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening out there, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of professional introductions. We hope you've learned some valuable things and feel ready to go out there and make those first impressions count.
Remember, every introduction is a chance to shine.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab for more deep dives into the world of English communication. We're here to help you improve your skills and achieve your goals. Until next time, keep practicing and keep shining. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and I am so excited for today's deep dive. We're going to be tackling something that I know a lot of you have been asking about, and that is how to talk about your job responsibilities in English. Clearly, confidently, professionally. Yeah. And to help us break it all down, we have Sarah with us today, who's an expert in English language communication.
It's great to be here, Mike. You know, explaining your job clearly is such a crucial skill for English learners, especially in situations like job interviews, networking events, even just casual conversations with colleagues.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that trips people up sometimes is they think, oh, my job is so complex. How could I ever explain this in English?
Yeah.
But you know what? I think we can break it down and make it simple for everyone.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Even the most complicated jobs can be explained in a way that anyone can understand. It's all about finding the right words and structure.
So where do we even begin with this, Sarah?
Well, Mike, the first step is to really understand your own responsibilities. It sounds obvious, but sometimes we just go through the motions at work without really thinking about what we do and why we do it. So I encourage you to sit down and list out all the tasks you do on a regular basis.
So even if it's like, refill the printer paper or answer the phone, those little things.
Exactly. Every little thing goes on the list.
Yeah.
And don't worry about perfect grammar or fancy vocabulary at this stage. You can even do this in your native language if it's easier for you.
So it's like creating a big brain dump of everything you do.
Yes, precisely. Now, once you have that list, try to group similar tasks together. For example, if you work in customer service, you might have tasks like answering emails, resolving complaints, processing orders. You can group all those under a category like customer interaction.
Okay, so we're starting to see some patterns emerging. Here's everything I do. Here's how I can group these similar things together.
Exactly. And then once you have your groups, you can start thinking about how often you do each task. Is it something you do every day, every week, or just occasionally?
Right? So like checking emails might be a daily task, while preparing a monthly report might be, monthly.
Exactly. And finally, the most important part, think about the purpose of your work. What is the overall goal? What value do you bring to the company?
Okay, so for example, if you're a cashier at a store, your daily tasks might involve scanning items, processing payments, and bagging groceries. But the ultimate goal is to provide excellent customer service and ensure a smooth and efficient checkout process.
Precisely. You're getting it.
Yeah.
Now, once you have a clear understanding of what you do and why you do it, we can start working on how to explain it in clear and simple English.
That's where the magic happens, right?
It is. And one of the best ways to do this is by simplifying complex duties into smaller, more digestible parts. Focus on the action verbs, what you actually do. Manage, assist, prepare, analyze. And then the object, what or who you work with customers, reports data equipment.
So instead of saying something like, I'm responsible for implementing strategic initiatives to optimize workflow, which just sounds like a bunch of corporate jargon.
Right. You could say, I manage projects to help the company reach its goals. Or I find ways to make work processes more efficient, much clearer, right?
Way clearer. I think anyone could understand that.
And that's the point. We want to make sure your experience is understandable to everyone, no matter their English level.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we've broken down our tasks, we've simplified the language. What's next?
Now it's time to build your vocabulary toolbox. There are certain verbs and phrases that are super helpful when talking about your work experience.
Ooh, vocabulary time. I'm ready to expand my English word bank.
Verbs like manage, assist, prepare, analyze, create, coordinate. These are your best friends. And phrases like I'm responsible for, my job is to, I take care of, I work with. Those are all great for clearly outlining your duties.
I'm writing all this down. This is gold. So we've got our tasks broken down. We're using powerful verbs and phrases. Now what?
Now we need to make sure our grammar and sentence structure are on point. We want to make sure our English is working for us, not against us.
Okay, grammar time. Hit me with the essentials.
The first thing to remember is tenses. Use present tense for current jobs and past tense for previous roles. It sounds simple, but it's a common mistake.
Right. So don't say, I am working as a teacher last year. It's, I worked as a teacher last year.
Exactly. And then we have adverbs of frequency. These are words like always, often, sometimes rarely. They tell us how often you do a task. So instead of just saying, I answer emails, you can say, I usually answer emails first thing in the morning.
That paints a much clearer picture.
And lastly, when it comes to sentence structure, keep it simple. Subject, verb, object. You can always add more details later, but this basic structure will keep your language clear and concise.
So like if you were a nurse, you could say, I care for patients. I monitor their vital signs. I administer medication. Straightforward and easy to understand.
Exactly. You're a natural, Mike. Now, to really put all this into practice, let's look at some real-life examples.
I love real-life examples. It helps to see how everything fits together.
Okay, so let's say you're applying for a job as a project manager. In your resume, you mentioned that you successfully led a team of developers to launch a new mobile app. That's fantastic. But how would you explain that experience in a way that highlights your key skills and accomplishments?
Okay, let me think. Well, I can say, as a project manager, I led a team of developers to launch a new mobile app. I managed the project timeline, communicated with stakeholders, and ensured we delivered a high-quality product on time and within budget.
That's excellent. You've clearly articulated your role, your responsibilities, and the positive outcome.
I'm feeling more confident already.
Yeah.
What about if you have experience in a field that uses a lot of technical jargon like marketing?
Great question. Marketing can definitely be tricky. But remember, the key is to simplify and clarify. So instead of saying, I developed and executed a comprehensive social media strategy, which can sound a bit intimidating.
Right, it's like, what does that even mean?
Exactly. You could break it down and say something like, I created a plan to increase the company's presence on social media. I managed the company's social media accounts, created engaging content, and tracked our results. My efforts led to a 20% increase in followers, which helped the company reach more potential customers.
Wow, that sounds so much more approachable and understandable.
It does, and it still highlights your achievements. See how powerful simple language can be.
This is fantastic stuff, Sarah.
Right.
I'm already feeling like I could explain my job in English with way more confidence. And I know our listeners are loving this too.
I'm glad to hear that, Mike. But we're just getting started. We still have a lot more to cover.
Oh, there's more. This is great. I can't wait to dive into part 2 of this deep dive.
Me neither, Mike. I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Me too. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back soon with even more tips and strategies to help you master the art of explaining your job responsibilities in English.
Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. We're diving right back into how to explain your job responsibilities in English. You know, we've covered some really important stuff so far, Mike, like breaking down those complex tasks, choosing the right verbs, mastering the grammar. It's all coming together.
It is. We're building a solid foundation here, Sarah.
We are. And now I want to talk about something that can really take your explanations to the next level, and that is focusing on the overall goal of your work.
Okay, so not just what you do, but why you do it.
Exactly. It's about showing the bigger picture, how your role contributes to the company's success. So let's say you're applying for a position as a marketing assistant. Instead of just saying, I created social media posts and sent out email newsletter.
Right, kind of like listing tasks.
Yeah, you want to go beyond that. You could say something like, I managed the company's online presence to engage with customers and promote our products, which led to a significant increase in website traffic and sales leads.
Okay, so you're not just describing what you did.
Okay.
You're showing the impact you made.
Yes, exactly. And that's what makes you stand out. You're demonstrating your value, your contribution to the company.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's about connecting those individual tasks to the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And, Mike, it's interesting you brought this up because it reminds me of something else that's really important when explaining your job, and that is storytelling.
Ooh, storytelling. I like that.
Because think about it. When you hear a good story, you're immediately engaged. You want to know what happens next? You remember the details?
It's true, stories have a way of sticking with you.
They do. And you can use that same power when you're explaining your job. Instead of just listing your tasks and responsibilities, you can weave them into a narrative that highlights your skills, your accomplishments, your impact.
Okay, so instead of just saying like, I designed brochures and websites.
Right. You could tell a story about a specific project you worked on. Maybe you could say something like, I was tasked with redesigning the company's website to make it more user-friendly and visually appealing. It was a challenging project, but I was able to successfully implement a new design that increased website traffic and boosted online sales.
Okay, so you're taking a simple statement and turning it into a mini adventure.
Exactly. And that's what makes storytelling so powerful. It makes your experiences come alive for the listener.
I'm already starting to think about some of my own work stories.
I love it. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. Start by talking about your work with friends, family members, language partners, anyone who will listen.
And don't be afraid to record yourself. Listening back can really help you identify areas for improvement.
It's true. And you can also ask for feedback from others. A fresh perspective can be so valuable.
Feedback is key. This has been awesome, Sarah. I feel like we're giving our listeners a secret weapon to ace those job interviews.
I hope so, Mike. And remember, confidence is a big part of it, too. Believe in yourself, practice these techniques, and you'll be amazing.
Speaking of practice, what are some other ways our listeners can hone their storytelling skills and get more comfortable talking about their work in English?
Well, like I said, just start talking about it as much as you can. But you can also try writing down your stories first. It can help you organize your thoughts and choose the right words. And then you can practice saying it out loud.
Okay, so write it down and then say it out loud.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment with different ways of telling the story. See what feels most natural and engaging for you.
This is great stuff, Sarah. I feel like we've covered so much ground already, but I know we're not done yet.
That's right, Mike. We still have those tricky interview questions to tackle.
Oh yes, those curveballs.
Oh.
I know our listeners are eager to hear how to handle those with grace and confidence.
Well, stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to equip you with the strategies and techniques you need to knock those interview questions out of the park.
All right, we are back for the final part of our deep dive on explaining job responsibilities in English. I'm Mike, and I'm here with Sarah, our English language expert. And Sarah, we've been talking about all these fantastic techniques for describing our work experience, but there's one thing that always makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
And that's those tricky interview questions. The ones that kind of throw you off balance.
Oh, yeah, those curveballs.
Yeah.
Everyone gets nervous about interview questions. It's totally normal. But the good news is, with a little bit of preparation, you can handle them like a pro.
Okay, so what are some of the most common curveballs that interviewers like to throw? And more importantly, how can we knock them out of the park?
Well, one of the classics is, tell me about yourself. It seems simple enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people struggle with it because it's so open-ended. You don't want to give your entire life story, but you also don't want to just sound like you're reading your resume.
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
It is. So my advice is to focus on highlighting the skills and experiences that are most relevant to the job you're applying for. Keep it concise and compelling. You could say something like, I'm a highly motivated marketing professional with a proven track record of success in developing and executing digital marketing campaigns. I'm passionate about using data-driven insights to drive results, and I'm excited to contribute my skills to a company that values innovation and growth.
Okay, so it's all about tailoring your response to the specific job and company.
Absolutely. Do your research, understand what they're looking for, and then showcase how your strengths align with their needs.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what about another classic? What are your strengths and weaknesses? I always feel like this one is a bit of a trap.
Yeah, it can feel that way. But honestly, it's just an opportunity for you to show that you're self-aware and that you're committed to continuous improvement.
So how do you recommend approaching this one?
Well, for strengths, be specific and give concrete examples. Don't just say you're a good communicator. Give an example of a time when your communication skills helped you achieve a positive outcome.
Write show, don't just tell.
Exactly. And then for weaknesses, choose something that isn't critical to the job you're applying for, and then explain how you're working to improve in that area.
So it's about being honest, but also framing it in a positive light.
Precisely. It's like saying, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm always striving to be better. And that's a quality that employers really value.
Okay, that makes sense. Now for the grand finale, the question that I think everyone dreads. Why should we hire you?
This is the ultimate test, right? It's your chance to really sell yourself and show why you're the best candidate for the job.
So what's the secret sauce?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Do your research, understand the company's needs and goals, and then connect your skills and experience directly to those needs. Show them that you're not just looking for any job. You're looking for this specific job because you believe you can make a real contribution.
So it's about demonstrating that you're the perfect fit.
Exactly. You want to make them think, wow, this person really gets it. They understand what we're looking for, and they have the skills and passion to deliver.
I'm feeling so much more prepared to tackle those interview questions now. This has been amazing, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
My pleasure, Mike. It's been a lot of fun. And to all of our listeners out there, remember, confidence is key. Believe in yourself, practice your English, and go out there and rock those job interviews.
You got this, everyone. And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more helpful English learning tips. We'll see you in the next deep dive. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and I'm super excited you're joining us for this deep dive into networking in English.
Yeah, it's a skill that can really open doors, especially when you're learning the language. I'm Sarah, and I'm here to kind of guide you through it.
Absolutely. We're going to break down everything from preparing for those first conversations to following up afterwards.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, networking used to make me super nervous, especially as an English learner. It felt like this secret code I had to crack.
I completely understand. It can definitely feel intimidating, but what's fascinating is that networking is actually a fantastic way to boost your English skills. Think of it as a language lab in action.
Right.
Every interaction helps you build fluency and confidence in a real-world setting.
I love that. So let's ditch the nerves and dive right into the first step, preparation. What's the secret sauce to getting ready for a networking event?
Research is your absolute superpower. Imagine you're going to a job fair before you even step foot in the door. Take some time to explore the companies that will be there. Which ones align with your goals? What projects have they done that pique your interest?
So like if I see someone from a company that's doing cutting edge work in sustainability, I could say, hey, I was really impressed by your recent initiative on reducing carbon emissions.
Precisely. It shows you've done your homework and that you're genuinely interested. It's a much stronger approach than just saying, hi, are you hiring? And while you're doing your research, think about key phrases. You might want to use practice greetings, introductions, and ways to ask questions, even simple things like, it's a pleasure to meet you, or could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, it's like prepping your conversational toolkit, right? Having those phrases at the ready can really boost your confidence. Okay, so we've done our research, we've practiced some key phrases. Now we're at the event and there's someone we want to talk to. How do we approach them without feeling awkward?
Remember, a smile is your universal passport. A friendly face and a confident posture go a long way. Look for people who seem open to connecting. Maybe they're standing alone or making eye contact. A simple, may I join you, or hiya. I don't think we've met. It could work wonders.
I love that. And if there are name tags, always use their name. It's such a simple way to show you're paying attention and that you value the interaction. So okay, we've broken the ice. We've introduced ourselves now. What is the time for small talk?
Small talk is the bridge to a more meaningful conversation. It's like warming up your conversational muscles. Think about common ground. You could comment on the event, the venue, even the weather, anything to create a comfortable atmosphere.
Let's give our listeners some real-world examples. Let's pretend we're at a job fair and I spot you standing by the coffee station.
Okay, I'm game.
Hi, I'm Mike. This coffee is strong, just what I needed. Are you also here looking for new opportunities?
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah. Absolutely. I'm exploring roles in the tech field. What about you?
I'm passionate about marketing, especially with how much it's evolving. Have you spoken to any companies that stood out to you?
Yes. XYZ company seems to be doing really innovative work. I'm planning to check out their booth next.
Oh, interesting. I've heard great things about their company culture. Maybe I'll see you over there.
Definitely.
See, that wasn't so painful. We found common ground and even a potential next step. Now let's shift gears to a conference. Coffee break. We're grabbing a refreshment and I notice you looking at the program.
All right, let's see what you've got.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Mike. Wow, there are so many interesting sessions here. Are you enjoying the conference so far?
Hi, Mike. It's great to see you again. It's been fantastic. The keynote speaker on AI really blew my mind. What about you? Any sessions that have stood out?
Yes, the workshop on data visualization was incredibly insightful. I learned some new techniques that I can't wait to try out.
I've heard great things about that one. Maybe we can compare notes later.
Okay, so we've initiated those conversations, but now comes the tricky part, keeping the conversation going without it feeling like an interrogation. Any tips?
Absolutely. This is where the power of open-ended questions comes in. Instead of asking questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, try asking things like, What do you enjoy most about your work? Or how did you get started in this industry?
Those are great. It invites the other person to share their experiences and insights.
Exactly. And while they're talking, remember to be an active listener, nodding, making brief comments like that's fascinating or I understand, and repeating key points back to them. These all show that you're genuinely engaged.
And it's a two-way street, right? We should also share relevant information about ourselves to keep the conversation balanced.
Absolutely. Look for natural ways to connect their responses to your own experiences or aspirations. For example, if they talk about a challenging project, you could mention a similar situation you faced and how you learned from it. It creates a connection.
That makes sense. So we're chatting, we're asking good questions, but now it's time to subtly shift the focus to what we're really there for our professional goals.
Yeah.
How do we do that without being too abrupt or awkward?
It's all about having a clear framework for talking about your work or aspirations. First, what do you do or what are you studying? Second, what are you good at or passionate about? And finally, if it feels right, what are you looking for?
Can you give us an example of that framework in action?
Sure, let's say you're a graphic designer. You could say, I'm a graphic designer. I love creating visual identities for brands. And right now, I'm particularly interested in working with startups in the tech industry.
That's concise and compelling. It tells them exactly who you are and what you bring to the table. Now, what about asking about their work? How do we show genuine interest without sounding like we're grilling them?
Think about what truly sparks your curiosity. You could ask what's a typical day like in your role, or what's the most exciting project you've worked on recently, or even how do you see your industry evolving in the next few years?
Those are great questions that invite them to share their expertise and passion, and it shows you're interested in more than just their job title.
Right. Remember, networking is about building genuine connections. It's about finding common ground, exchanging ideas, and exploring potential collaborations.
Okay, let's try a couple more dialogues.
Yeah.
First one focused on discussing jobs. Imagine you're at a networking event and I come up to you.
All right, let's see what you've got.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Mike.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. I work as a language tutor, and I find it so rewarding to help people communicate effectively. What do you do?
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah, and I work as a project manager at a software company.
That sounds fascinating. What kind of projects do you typically manage?
We develop mobile apps for various clients. It's a fast-paced environment, but I love the challenge of bringing ideas to life.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm always amazed by the creativity and technical skills involved in app development.
It's definitely a collaborative effort, and we have a great team. Wait, what about you? What do you enjoy most about language tutoring?
I love seeing those aha moments when a student grasps a new concept or finally feels confident speaking. It's incredibly rewarding.
I can imagine that must be incredibly fulfilling.
Okay, so we've talked about jobs. Let's shift to a scenario where we're discussing career goals. Let's say we bump into each other at a university career fair.
Sounds good. I'm ready when you are.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Mike. I'm studying international relations, and I'm really passionate about promoting cross-cultural understanding. What about you? What brings you here today?
Hi, Mike. It's nice to see you again. I'm here exploring potential internship opportunities. I'm graduating soon with a degree in computer science, and I'd love to find a role where I can apply my skills to solve real-world problems.
That's fantastic. I've always been impressed by the power of technology to connect people and make a positive impact. What kind of problems are you most interested in tackling?
I'm fascinated by AI and its potential in healthcare. I believe AI can revolutionize how we diagnose and treat diseases.
Wow, that's an incredibly important and exciting field. I can see how your skills in computer science could make a real difference there.
Thanks, this is something I'm really passionate about. What about you? What are your career aspirations after you finish your studies?
I'm hoping to work for an international organization focused on diplomacy or conflict resolution. I believe that effective communication is key to building bridges between cultures.
That's admirable, Mike. I wish you all the best in achieving your goals.
Thanks, Sarah. You too. Those dialogues felt much more natural even when discussing potentially tricky topics like career aspirations. But let's face it, sometimes things don't go perfectly smoothly. What if we don't understand something the other person is saying? It's a common fear for English learners.
Absolutely. But remember, everyone appreciates honesty and willingness to learn.
So what's the best way to handle those moments without feeling embarrassed?
It's simple. Just politely ask for clarification. You can say, sorry, could you repeat that, or could you explain that a bit more, or even paraphrase to check your understanding, you mean?
I love that. Let's imagine someone throws a jargon-filled sentence at us, like, I specialize in supply chain optimization.
All right, put me on the spot. So they say, I specialize in supply chain optimization. I could reply, excuse me, could you break down what supply chain optimization means?
Perfect. Now they can explain it in simpler terms. You've taken control of the situation and shown a desire to learn. But sometimes it's not the language itself. It's the nerves that get us out straight. What are your go-to tips for calming those pre-networking jitters?
First, breathe. Deep, slow breaths can work wonders. Second, shift your focus outwards onto the other person, not your internal monologue. Remember, they're there to connect to. And finally, remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes. Especially when learning a language, it's all part of the process.
That's such great advice. And finally, let's talk about wrapping up conversations gracefully. It can be awkward figuring out the right moment and words, especially if you want to stay connected. What are some polite exit strategies?
I like to signal that while I need to move on, I value the conversation. Try something like, it was wonderful talking to you. I'm going to mingle a bit more, but it would be great to stay in touch.
That's friendly and open-ended. What about situations where you really hit it off with someone and want to make sure you connect later?
Before you part ways, exchange contact info. Would you mind if I got your card, or let's connect on LinkedIn are perfect? And that brings us to the next crucial step. Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. It's great to continue our exploration of networking in English.
I'm excited for this part. So part one, we covered the basics of preparing for conversations and getting those interactions started. But now let's talk about how to really make those connections count. It's time for the follow-up.
You got it. And it's a step many people overlook, but it's crucial. Let's start with that all-important follow-up message. Remember, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Okay, so spill the secrets. What's the magic formula for an effective follow-up email?
The key is to strike while the iron is hot. Aim to send a brief message within a day or two while the conversation is still fresh in both your minds. And here's where those specific details we talked about in part one come in handy. Mention something you discussed to jog their memory and show you were truly listening.
So instead of just saying, it was nice to meet you, I could say something like, I really enjoyed our conversation about the future of virtual reality.
Yeah.
It's something I'm super passionate about.
Exactly. It shows you were paying attention and that you value the connection. And if you're keen to continue the conversation, suggest a next step.
Like a casual coffee chat or a more formal meeting.
Precisely. It shows initiative and genuine interest.
Okay, I'm ready to craft some follow-up emails. Can you give us a sample email that our listeners can adapt?
Absolutely. Here's a basic template.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
Subject line, great meeting you at event name.
Okay, short and sweet. And what about the body of the email?
Hi, name. It was great connecting with you at event on date. I particularly enjoyed hearing about your work in their field. I'd love to stay in touch and perhaps grab a coffee sometime to chat more about topic. Best regards, your name, your contact info.
I love how concise and friendly that is. It gets the point across without being too overwhelming. And you mentioned LinkedIn earlier. How can we use that platform effectively for networking?
LinkedIn is a goldmine for building and nurturing professional relationships. When you connect with someone you've met, always personalize your invitation, mention the event, and something specific you discuss, just like in the email example.
So instead of that generic, I'd like to add you to my professional network, I could say it was great chatting with you at the conference. I'm particularly interested in learning more about your work with AI.
That's perfect. It shows you're not just randomly adding people, but you're genuinely interested in connecting. And remember, networking isn't a one-time thing. It's about building relationships over time, check in periodically, share relevant articles, congratulate them on achievements. These little gestures go a long way.
I can see how those small actions can help solidify those connections now. Before we wrap up this section, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the practical steps. But what about the mindset? What are some internal shifts we can make as English learners to feel more confident about networking?
That's a great question. First and foremost, embrace your journey as an English learner. It's something to be proud of, not something to shy away from.
So many people around the world are learning English, and it's a skill that opens up so many doors.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to let people know you're learning. Most people are incredibly understanding and willing to help if you need clarification or want to practice.
It takes courage to put yourself out there, especially when you're still mastering the language, but that vulnerability can actually be a strength.
Absolutely. People connect with authenticity, so don't try to be perfect. Just be yourself. Let your passion and enthusiasm shine through.
I love that. And before we move on, I have to ask any tips for those moments when the nerves really kick in, like right before walking into an event or approaching someone new.
We all experience nerves. It's totally normal. First, remember to breathe deep, slow breaths. can work wonders to calm those jitters. Second, shift your focus outward onto the people you're about to meet. What can you learn from them? How can you connect with them?
It's like that saying, focus on giving, not getting.
Exactly. And finally, give yourself permission to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process.
This has been so empowering. We've covered so much ground, crafting follow-up messages, navigating LinkedIn, and even shifting our mindset to embrace our journey as English learners. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. Practicing those essential networking skills. What are some fun and effective ways our listeners can hone those skills outside of formal events?
I'm glad you asked. Let's dive into some practical exercises in part 3 that will boost your confidence and help you make those connections with ease. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Learn English Lab for the final part of our networking deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from prepping for conversations to crafting those all-important follow-up messages. Now let's talk about how to make practicing those networking skills fun and effective.
I love that it's all about finding ways to integrate those skills into your everyday life.
Exactly. So what are some creative exercises our listeners can try?
Let's start with that foundation, your elevator pitch. Remember, it's your concise and compelling introduction. It's like a verbal business card that captures who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for.
We talked about the framework in part 1, but how do we actually craft a pitch that's both informative and engaging?
Start by putting pen to paper. Don't worry about perfection at first. Just get those ideas flowing. Write down the key points you want to convey.
I can see how that would help organize my thoughts.
Absolutely. Once you have something down, practice saying it out loud. You can even record yourself to hear how it sounds.
Ooh, I love that hearing your own voice can be so revealing.
You're right. It helps you identify areas where you can smooth out the language or add a bit more personality. And as you practice, try experimenting with different tones of voice. See what feels most natural and authentic to you.
Okay, so we've got our elevator pitch polished and ready to go. What's next on our practice agenda?
Role-playing, it's one of the most effective ways to build confidence and fluency. Find a friend, a language partner, or even practice in front of a mirror.
I can see how that would be helpful. You're basically simulating those real-life networking interactions.
Precisely. Try different scenarios. A job fair, a conference, a casual industry mixer. Practice those greetings, small talk topics, and open-ended questions we discussed in part 1. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become.
And it's a safe space to make mistakes. Right? No pressure, just practice and get comfortable with the flow of conversation.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something that often trips up English learners. Vocabulary networking, especially in professional settings, can involve industry-specific jargon.
So how do we expand our vocabulary beyond those basic textbook words and phrases?
Games are a fantastic way to learn. Here's a fun one. Write down a list of 10 jobs like nurse, engineer, teacher, entrepreneur, then practice saying, I work as a job. What about you? What do you do?
I love that it's simple, but it gets you comfortable talking about different professions. What other vocabulary boosting strategies do you recommend?
Immerse yourself in real-world English content related to your field. Read industry articles, listen to podcasts, watch TED Talks. But don't just passively consume the information. Take notes, write down new words and phrases, and look up definitions, then try using them in your own conversations.
It's like actively integrating those new words into your vocabulary.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears to a crucial skill that's often overlooked: active listening. It's not just about hearing what someone is saying, it's about truly engaging with their words and showing that you value their perspective.
This is so important, not just for networking, but for communication in general. What makes someone a good listener?
It's all about being present and attentive. Make eye contact, nod, smile, and use those verbal cues like, that's interesting, or I see, to show you're following along.
And it's about resisting the urge to interrupt or plan your next response while the other person is talking, right? It's about truly absorbing what they're saying.
You nailed it. And here's a pro tip. Try paraphrasing what you've heard back to the speaker to ensure you understand correctly, you could say. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying it shows you're really paying attention and provides an opportunity for clarification if needed.
I love that it's like taking those listening skills to the next level.
Right. And remember to ask follow-up questions based on what they've shared. It shows genuine interest and keeps the conversation flowing.
This has been such a practical session. We've covered elevator pitches, role-playing vocabulary building, and active listening. I feel like I have a whole toolkit of strategies now.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, practice is key. The more you put these strategies into action, the more confident and effective you'll become.
And remember, networking is about building relationships, not just collecting business cards. It's about connecting with people who share your interests, learning from their experiences, and exploring potential collaborations.
Beautifully said. Networking can open so many doors, both personally and professionally, and as English learners, you have a unique advantage. You're already stepping outside your comfort zone and embracing new challenges.
That's such an important point. Learning a new language is a journey of growth and discovery, and those same skills, resilience, adaptability, and a willingness to learn, are essential for successful networking.
Absolutely. Embrace your journey, celebrate your progress, and remember that every interaction is an opportunity to learn and grow.
This has been such an inspiring and informative deep dive. Thank you for sharing your expertise and empowering our listeners to confidently navigate the world of networking in English.
It's been my pleasure. I'm so glad we could connect with our amazing listeners today.
And to all our Learn English Lab viewers, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more English learning content. We'll see you in the next episode. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving into something pretty important for anyone, especially if English isn't your first language, who wants to move up in their careers. We're going to be talking about promotions and job growth.
It can be tough, I know.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky. But luckily we have Sarah here. She's our expert, and she's going to help us break it all down.
Glad to be here, Mike. Happy to help.
Awesome. Because, let's be real. Whether you want to take that next big step or just handle those talks at work more smoothly, knowing the right words and phrases, it can really make a big difference. Right?
For sure. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Those key things that can, really help you explain your goals and show off what you've achieved and, just make those sometimes awkward conversations about your career a lot easier.
I am so ready for this. So Sarah, before we jump into the language details, can we maybe talk about why this skill is so important? Why is it so crucial to master this?
It's a good question. It really comes down to this. Being able to explain your hopes, your skills, what you bring to the table clearly and well, that's super important for anyone who wants to move up in their career. It doesn't matter what your native language is.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does that actually work in real life? What does that look like?
Well, think about it. When you get promoted, it usually means you'll have more responsibility, maybe more money, and people recognize your talent and all the hard work you've put in. But to get there, you have to be able to explain why you deserve to move up, right? And doing that in English in a professional way, that can be a total game changer, especially if English isn't your first language.
Yeah, I get it. So it's not just about asking for more money. It's about showing them you're ready to grow in the company.
Exactly. It's showing you take initiative, highlighting your wins, and talking about your goals in a way that makes sense to, the people making decisions. And if you can do that well in English, it can open doors for you, even globally.
That's awesome. So where do we start with all of this? What are the basic things we need to know to talk about this stuff, about promotions and job growth in English?
I think it starts with the words, the vocabulary. Knowing the important terms and phrases about, moving up in your career, it'll not only make you sound more professional, but it'll also give you the tools to say exactly what you mean.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into those important words. What are some of the must-knows? The words anyone who wants to have these conversations needs to know.
Let's start with the basics, like promotion, which means moving up to a higher job in the company. Then there's raise. I think we all know what that means.
Yeah.
More money. And then we have position, which is the specific job you have in a company.
Okay, got it. So far, so good.
Right. Now let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about the things that usually help you get promoted and grow in your job. For example, responsibility is a big one. It's about things you're supposed to do at work and, how well you do them. That can really affect where your career goes. And of course, there's performance. That's about how well you do your job, how well you meet your goals.
Makes sense. So we've covered the words for moving up and the stuff that helps you get there. What about the big picture of our careers? How do we talk about that?
You're right. There are words for that too, like career itself. It's the whole path of your work life, right? Not just one job. It's about what you want to do in the long term and how you, get better professionally over time.
And along the way, there are always new things to learn.
Totally. And those are your skills. Skills are those things you learn from experience, from training, from education. And being able to explain your skills well, that's really important if you want to show a company what you're worth or if you want to, ask for a promotion in your current company.
Yeah, and it's not just the skills we have now, it's also the ones we want to learn in the future.
Right, exactly. And that's where opportunities come in. Opportunities are those chances to learn new things, to grow, to move up in your career. They can be anything. A tough new project, a mentorship, a chance to lead a team. Being open to those opportunities is key if you want to grow professionally.
Yeah, it sounds like being able to talk about those opportunities clearly could really help you stand out.
You got it. Another word that's important is development. It's that constant process of improving your skills, knowledge, and experience. You can do that through training programs, mentorships, learning stuff on your own, or even just by taking on new challenges at your job.
It feels like we're building like a good, solid base here, with all these words for the journey, for skills, for opportunities.
We are. And to give this all a direction, we need goals. A goal is something specific you want to achieve in your career. It could be getting promoted, learning a new skill, or even, something long-term, like starting your own business. Having clear goals helps you focus and stay motivated. And being able to explain them clearly, that's super important when you're talking about where you want to go in your career.
This is a great start, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's not just about knowing the right, names for things. We need some action words in there too, right? Some verbs.
You're totally right. We need verbs to bring those nouns to life, to show what we've done and what we can do. And some of the best verbs to use here are the ones that show action and impact.
Okay, I like that. Action and impact. Give me some examples.
One of my favorites is achieve. It's a strong word. It means you did something successfully and you got results. Imagine saying, I achieved all my sales goals this quarter, or I achieved some serious cost savings because I started a new process.
Yeah, okay, that definitely sounds better than just saying, I did this.
Right. Then we have contribute, which shows you're a team player and that you bring something valuable to the group effort. You could say, I contributed to the team's success by, coming up with a new marketing plan that made more people aware of our brand.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're taking all the credit.
Exactly. And it shows what you did without, sounding like you're bragging. Another good one is improve. We all want to get better at what we do, and this word shows that you're working on that. For example, I have improved my communication skills by taking an English course, or I have improved our team's efficiency by making the workflow, simpler.
I can already see how using these words can change how I present myself, make me sound more confident. But what about leadership? How do we talk about that the right way?
That's a super important one, especially if you're aiming for those, management positions. The verb lead is perfect for this. It means you take initiative, guide others, and succeed as a team. You could say, I led a project that made profits go up by 15%, or I led a team of 5 developers to create a new mobile app.
Wow, okay. It really does sound like we're making a toolkit of words, words that make you sound confident and capable.
We are, and don't forget about negotiate. That verb is key when you're speaking up for yourself, whether it's for more money, a promotion, or even just a more flexible work schedule. I successfully negotiated a higher salary based on my performance, or I negotiated a new job with more responsibilities that fit my career goals. Those are powerful things to say.
This is great. We've covered so many important words. But I have a feeling it's not just about throwing these words around. We got to make sure we're using them the right way in sentences, right?
That's a great point. And that's where grammar comes in. Getting good at certain grammar structures, it can help you sound more polished, more professional, and more convincing when you're talking about this stuff.
All right, hit me with the grammar lesson. What do I need to remember?
One of the most useful tools in your grammar toolbox is the present perfect tense. This tense is all about connecting the great things you've done in the past to the goals you have now. It helps you show how your experience is relevant to what you want to do in the future.
Present perfect. I'm a little rusty on that one. Can you remind me how that works again?
Of course. The formula is simple. Have, or has, plus the past participle of the verb. So instead of saying, I worked on several projects, you would say, I have worked on several projects.
Oh, I see. It's like you're emphasizing that what you did in the past still matters and has made you the professional you are today.
Exactly. It makes your achievements sound stronger and connects them to what you're aiming for now. Another important thing in grammar is using words like could, would, and might. They can soften your requests or suggestions. It makes you sound more polite and less demanding, which is really important at work.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, could we talk about my promotion? Sounds a lot nicer than I want a promotion.
For sure. It shows you respect the other person's time and perspective, and it makes the conversation more collaborative.
Awesome. Okay. Any of the grammar tips you want to share?
One more that's super useful is using conditionals. These are if-then sentences that let you talk about possibilities and show that you've really thought things through. It shows you're not just stuck in the present, but that you're also thinking about the future, about how you can help the company grow. For example, you could say, if I were to become the team lead, I would start a new training program to help my team members develop their skills.
Well, that's a good one. It makes you sound like you're someone who takes initiative and thinks ahead. It's like you're showing them what you could do if they give you the chance.
Exactly. It shows you're strategic and you care about the company's success.
Yeah.
And one last grammar tip, and this is an important one. Be careful how often you say I.
Ooh, yeah, I know I do that too much sometimes. It's easy to get caught up in talking about yourself, but it can sound a bit selfish if you're not careful.
Right, you got to find a good balance. Instead of always saying, I did this, I did that, try using we and the team more. That shows you work well with others and that you appreciate everyone's contributions.
Okay, so instead of, I finished this project ahead of schedule, I could say, we as a team were able to finish the project ahead of schedule.
Perfect. That sounds way more like you're a team player and that you recognize everyone's hard work.
This is great, Sarah. I'm already feeling more confident. But I have to admit, even with all these words and grammar tips, I still get a little nervous when I think about actually having those conversations. You know, like asking for a promotion or more money can be pretty scary.
I totally get it. Those conversations can be stressful, even for native English speakers. But don't worry, we're going to give you a whole bunch of phrases you can use in different situations. We'll talk about how to start those conversations, how to talk about your achievements, and how to negotiate confidently and respectfully. So stick with us and we'll go through it all step by step.
That sounds perfect. I'm ready for it.
All right, let's get down to business. We've got our vocabulary, we've got our grammar. So now let's talk about some specific phrases. Phrases you can use to, make those important career conversations go smoothly and confidently.
Yes. Those magic words, please. The words that'll unlock those promotions.
Well, magic might be pushing it, but having the right phrases ready, it can definitely make those conversations less scary. Let's start with one of the most common situations, asking for a promotion.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one. I think lots of people, myself included, get nervous just thinking about bringing it up.
It's understandable. But remember, it's okay to speak up for your career growth. And there are ways to do it professionally and, without being afraid to ask for what you want. A good way to start is to say something like, I'd like to talk about my career path and maybe some opportunities for advancement.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Nice and direct.
Exactly. It opens up the conversation without being too pushy. Or you could say something a bit more specific, like, I'm really interested in growing within the team. Would it be possible to schedule a time to talk about this more?
Oh, I like that. It shows you're not just waiting around, you're thinking ahead, you're serious about this.
Right. And it shows that you're not just looking for any job. You want to grow with this company specifically. Okay, so once you start the conversation, the next thing is to talk about your accomplishments, highlight what you've achieved.
This is where I sometimes struggle, to be honest. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I also want them to know what I've done. You know what I mean?
I get it. Lots of people feel that way. The trick is to be specific and focus on how your work made a difference. Instead of just saying, I worked hard, try saying something like, I successfully led the website redesign project, and that led to a 20% increase in website traffic. Using numbers to show your achievements, that's a strong way to show your value.
I see. Numbers are more convincing, especially at work.
Exactly. Another good strategy is to connect your wins to the skills they're looking for in the promotion you want. For example, you could say, in my current role, I've consistently exceeded my sales targets, which shows I can build great relationships with clients and bring in more revenue. And these skills are exactly what you need for the sales manager position.
That's smart. It's like you're connecting the dots for them, showing them why you're the perfect person for the job.
You got it. Now, let's move on to something that can be a little more nerve-wracking, negotiating a raise or a promotion.
Okay, deep breaths, everyone. This is where I start to get really nervous. Any tips for approaching this confidently?
Absolutely. The most important thing is to be prepared, to be respectful, and to focus on what you bring to the company. A good way to start is to say something like, I'd like to talk about my compensation, considering my recent performance and the extra responsibilities I've taken on.
Okay, that sounds professional. Gets right to the point without being too aggressive.
Right. And if you're specifically aiming for a promotion, you could say, I feel confident I'm ready for more responsibility, to contribute at a higher level. I'd love to discuss the possibility of moving into a position name role.
Okay, yeah, I like that. It's direct, but not, demanding.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Your manager might push back a little. or maybe bring up some concerns. Don't let that discourage you. It's a normal part of negotiation.
So how do we deal with that? What's a good way to handle those objections?
One way is to just restate how valuable you are, remind them of what you've achieved, and connect those things to what you want. For example, you could say, I understand there are budget limits, but I really believe my performance and the results I've gotten justify a salary increase that reflects, what I'm worth in the current job market. I'm committed to this company's success, and I want my compensation to be fair, considering what I contribute.
Ooh, that's a good one. It acknowledges their point of view, but still shows you're standing up for yourself.
Right. And don't forget, negotiating is a back and forth. Be open to compromise, Think about creative solutions. You might not get everything you ask for, but if you're confident and respectful, you can usually find a solution that works for both of you.
This is super helpful. I feel like I'm actually getting some tools I can use to approach these conversations strategically.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, even if those first conversations don't get you a promotion or a raise right away, they're still really valuable. They show your ambition, your professionalism, and that you're committed to growing. People notice that.
That's a good reminder. It's not always about the immediate result. It's about, planting the seeds for the future.
Exactly. And speaking of the future, let's talk about why it's important to talk about your long-term goals. It shows your manager that you're not just thinking about the next step, but about your whole career path and how you see yourself contributing to the company down the line.
Right. It shows you're invested in your own growth and the company's success.
Exactly. A great way to express those long-term goals is to say something like, my goal is to keep getting better at area of interest and eventually take on a leadership role where I can mentor and guide others. Or, I'm really passionate about this company's mission and I can see myself building a career here, really contributing to its growth and success.
Those are great examples. They're clear, to the point, and they show you're serious and ambitious.
And they show that you're thinking beyond just the next promotion. You're looking at the big picture.
Okay, we've talked about a lot here. Asking for a promotion, talking about your achievements, and navigating those tricky negotiations. Is there anything else we should remember as we get ready for these conversations?
You're right, we've covered a lot. But before we wrap up this part, let's talk about some really important things you can do to prepare. Things that can really boost your confidence and help you make the most of these conversations.
I'm all ears. Preparation is key, so tell me, what are some strategies we can use to set ourselves up for success?
It's a great question. It really is. It's one thing to have all those phrases and grammar rules, in your head, but to actually feel ready to use them in a real conversation, that takes a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, like having all the stuff to make an amazing dinner, but then not knowing how to actually cook it. So what can we do to make sure we're really, truly ready for these conversations?
I love that. Okay, let's think of this as our recipe for success, right? The first thing, and this is super important, know your achievements. Before you even think about scheduling a meeting or writing that email, take some time to really think about all the great things you've done.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But how do we do that the right way? Should we just make a list in our heads?
A list in your head is a start, but I think you should actually write them down. That'll help you remember them better, and it lets you see them more clearly. And don't just list the tasks you did, focus on the impact, How did what you did help the company? Did you do more than they expected? Did you save time or money? Did you help create a good team atmosphere? Think about all of that.
Oh, okay. So instead of just saying, I answered customer service calls, I could say, I was consistently able to solve customer problems quickly and got positive feedback for being helpful and professional.
Exactly. You're showing them the value you brought to the role, not just, checking off tasks on a list. And whenever you can, use numbers to show your achievements. Numbers are strong. They make a statement. Don't just say, I increased sales. Say, I increased sales by 15% in just 3 months.
I get it. It's about painting a clear picture, not just saying general stuff.
Exactly. The next step is do your research. If you want a specific position, don't just go in there without knowing anything. Take some time to really understand what the job needs, what the responsibilities are. Read the job description super carefully, look at similar jobs online, and if you can, talk to people who already have that job or something similar in the company.
So it's about showing them you've done your homework and that you're really serious about this particular job.
Exactly. This research will also help you use the right language, to give examples that match the specific skills and experience they want.
Makes sense. Preparation is key. What else can we do to feel more confident before these conversations?
This one might sound obvious, but it's so important. Practice, practice, practice. Don't just assume that once you have all your achievements and research ready, you'll magically say everything perfectly when you're actually talking to someone.
Yeah, that's where I usually mess up. I have all these good points in my head, but when I actually try to say them out loud, it's like jumbled mess.
That happens to a lot of people. It's totally normal. The best thing to do is rehearse. Say your main points out loud. Practice how you'll say them in front of a mirror. Or even better, practice the whole conversation with a friend or family member.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. It's like a practice run before the real thing.
Exactly. It helps you get all the, little kinks out of your sentences, get comfortable with the vocabulary, and it just makes you sound more fluent and confident when you're actually talking.
Great tip. So we've made our list of achievements, we've done our research, we've practiced what we're going to say. Anything else?
Here's one that people often forget. Have some polite questions ready. When you go into a conversation about your career, having some good questions shows you're interested, you're thinking ahead, and you're really serious about the opportunity.
That's a good point. It makes it feel more like a two-way conversation, not just me asking for something. What kind of questions should I have ready?
You could ask about the specific skills or experience they want for this role, when they'll make a decision, or if there are any professional development opportunities they recommend, to make you even more qualified. You could also ask about their vision for the team or department and how you can help them achieve it.
Those are really good questions. They show that you're not just thinking about right now, but about the future and how you can help the company reach their goals.
Exactly. And finally, and this might be the most important tip, stay positive. Your attitude is huge. It really affects how you come across in these conversations. Go in there feeling confident, enthusiastic, focus on your strength and what you can bring to the table.
Yeah, you're right. Enthusiasm is contagious. A positive attitude can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. Focus on what you're passionate about, show them you're eager to learn and grow, and let them see how excited you are about the chance to contribute at a higher level.
Well, Sarah, this has been amazing. A total crash course in talking about promotions and job growth in English. We've covered so much. Vocabulary, grammar, key phrases, how to prepare. I feel way more confident now.
That's fantastic to hear, Mike. And remember, even if that first conversation doesn't get you that promotion or raise right away, the practice you're getting is so valuable. Every conversation is a chance to learn, to get better, and to refine your approach.
That's true. It's all part of the process.
It is. And to all our listeners out there, remember, you have the power to create the career you want. With the right tools and a proactive mindset, you can achieve your goals and really reach your full potential. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, show your worth, and have those conversations that can open doors to amazing new opportunities. And of course, keep practicing your English.
Yes, and to help you do just that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more tips and advice on improving your English and rocking your career. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for those goals.